What's going on, traders? It looks like today is going to be one of those days we're going to be waiting. It's what? It's Jerome Powell Day. It's like the wild, wild west. I just hear it out there. Do, 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 do. Is he going to pull? Is he going to draw? Is he going to talk about disinflation? Will the markets go up? Find out all right here on live trading. Let's see what we can get into today.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Those words have been dancing around my head all night. I mean, it's Vegas lore, that phrase.
All right, traders, welcome to it. And guess what? The boys are back together. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. Sing it, baby, because we're going to get it started. You know it. Let's bring on the boys. Ryan, Faloona. We got Zunaid in the house. Yes, everybody's back in the chair.
I knew coming back today that someone was going to sing "The Boys Are Back in Town."
The boys
I
are
also
back in
knew that it
town.
wasn't going to be me. But
I'm not cultured enough for that. So
I'm not cultured. He said,
you know
okay.
what I mean? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
nor do I have the voice.
The most cultured guy here is saying I'm not cultured.
Oh, man.
But it's all good. It's all good. That's what it's all about, right? We all know our ways and we got to enjoy it, right? We're ready to get into the market. Like I always say, like it's a new day, new opportunities, time to focus on what we can master today, right? I've been working really hard on trying to take more trades, keeping it very simple, being very flexible during the day. If I need a flip, I need a flip. This has been that type of market where I really haven't gotten the continuation moves. Like yesterday, running to the profits on Pakar, things like this are really giving me an opportunity. Like let's say X, for instance, right? I got a 6% winner on this swing trade last week. But what does it do now? Well, it just pulls right back almost to the levels that I bought it at, right? And so this is that type of market where if I hang on to these trades, a lot of times they come back. Even on the intraday, maybe I can ride it up for 1 day, 2 days, but it's very hard to get 2, 3 day, 4 days in one direction. And so with that being said, I'm going to look for some pullbacks on stocks like X that I got back on 28.87. Can we get back to the 29? Things like that. Going to be looking for it. BTU on my radar. Will this get back to 28? NTR that I already made money on that rip towards the trend line. Now it's pulling back. I'll look for pullbacks below 80 to get back into NTR. We'll see what happens on these names. MOS has been strong. Going to keep an eye out on that. Of course, I still have AAL, American Airlines swing, and I have CF. These are my only two positions right now. We'll see what happens today with Jerome Powell. Will he turn the market around, right? I think that's what we're all going to be looking at. Right now, in my outlook, I think that we got the golden cross, right? And when we got that golden cross, we got a big pullback. Now we're actually looking like we're getting this throwback look. I think if we can stay above 400, I'm staying short-term bullish. Just as simple as that for me. And that's a nice level right below. We got about 4 points from that. So we'll see if we crack that today. But if we can hold 400, I still see the path back up towards potentially the 420, which would create the new bull market. All right, that's enough for my outlook on the SPY. I got a lot of stocks that I can always talk about. Of course, you guys can catch up on all the swing trading ideas on, of course, Start Swing Trading. And for you day traders on that show, well, what I would catch on that show is necessarily the stocks that I mentioned are looking strong. Like yesterday, we mentioned some other names that were looking strong, and that was in solar names. We've talked about those here. And we've also talked about like names like Pinterest and Snap that have really been strong. So just want to mention those. Now I'll kick it to you guys. Let's go to Zunaid's charts.
Already.
Ryan said, I'm ready. I'm ready, baby.
Things in here. I wanted to thread a couple of things. You were talking about the SPY. I want to cover SPY. I'm ready to go.
Let's do it. I like this outlook too, right, Ryan? Because you've been a little bit on the golf course. So you've had a little bit of some pushing the noise to the side. So you can take a look at the price action. What do you see, Ryan?
Okay, well, a couple of things. I had a lot of days on the golf course, and I pushed everything to the side, with the exception of golf, which was incredible, by the way. Shout out to Myrtle Beach. That is really awesome. But let's talk about the SPY, because kind of a lot's changed since I left. And it's great to see everyone in here this morning, a whole bunch of regulars. And I also want to welcome Lakshmi, new member here. Lakshmi, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is an active member in our Benzinga Pro chat community, has a whole bunch of great trading ideas, never short for trading ideas, trades to the long side, trades to the short side, up on a lot of different things, and he's got all of the jokes. So Lakshmi, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Hopefully that you enjoy your stay and you keep sharing your trading ideas like you do with the rest of our community. So welcome, everybody, and good morning to all of the regulars in here. We are complete. That's right, Shelly. Crow, Becca, the girl, Beach Bum, Carmen, Bill. There's so many people. I'm not going to go and say good morning to all of them. Good morning, everybody. All right, let's dive into the SPY, because things have changed considerably since I was here. Now, I'm still overall kind of in the bearish camp, but if you remember correctly, the last time that we were talking here, we were trying to break down through some of these moving averages towards our channel here on SPY. This is our downward channel from the beginning of 2022. We bounced really, really strong off of that trend line. Let's call it the 200-day. That's that blue line in here. We actually broke back above the trend line. We did find some resistance in this resistance area from 403 to 405 that we've been dealing with for some time now. And now it looks like it's maybe that bounce is kind of coming to an end here. Maybe we're kind of slowing down, and maybe we're going to return back to the downside. First stop here would be this green trend line. So it probably put us at about 400. I would expect a bounce or some type of support at the round number anyway. So we'll see if that materializes. Now that we have this other high, we've got one of Mitch's famous trend lines here. So let's see what the SPY actually does here on the daily. Again, from looking at this to my eye, it sure seems like we want to come back in and trade to the downside, but we'll see where we end up going here. So this is about what I've got for SPY. I know Powell's talking today, but as Mitch just said off camera, this is basically the grill Powell day. This is not the interest rate meeting. So I understand wanting to wait, but let's temper our expectations, because this is probably not going to be the big event that really drives the market. Could it be? Sure, but I tend not to think so. So we'll see how that shakes out. Now, let's move over to the movers list and go through it really quickly before we turn it over to Zunaid here. A couple of them that I want to mention. First of all, we're going to start with the penny stock, because I'm going to really throw all of you guys for a loop. First one here is going to be TRKA. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because when this first started, this was just about 10 cents when this really first started to move. As you can see now, we've about 10x that, and we're really coming up towards the top here. So first of all, if you're long this with profits, be ready to take some. Be ready to at least lock some of it in. If you want to play this for some continued momentum run, awesome idea, but make sure you get some of those profits. Don't give them all back. As far as what we're looking at here today, we closed yesterday at about 76 cents. We've gapped up here. We're up 24% here today. Sure looks like it wants to take the top off here at 96 and maybe go for that dollar, maybe even pop above a dollar. So we'll see if we end up getting that. Now, remember, some of these stocks, we really haven't got that upward break momentum, right? We've really started to generate momentum when it's come into the VWAP or come into a support level and then curled back towards the highs, as opposed to actually having continued momentum on a break through the high. But nonetheless, we are extended away from the VWAP here by about 9 cents, and it sure looks like we're going to try to take that top out here on TRKA. So we'll check on this, but be ready, especially depending on where you have your stock at or where you have your cost basis at. Next here, we're going to mention VRAX, and you knew we were going to mention VRAX because we had an exclusive on this here today. VRAX Biolab shares are trading higher after the company announced an agreement for the distribution of an avian influenza A virus real-time PCR test kit to the European market. Okay, so it looks like we've got a new test kit. I actually haven't dug into a whole lot of what this is and what this means, but we'll be able to do that here. The important part here is Virax has now popped. We're up about 90 cents. So we're up 136% here. Again, want to make sure that we actually put ourselves in a good position to trade this. First things first here, it looks like this 164 was the top. We did break that and came right back in, got as high as 174. So let's see what kind of pop and momentum we have if we do move here to the upside. I actually wouldn't be shocked at all. Wouldn't be shocked at all if this came back in, maybe settled around the VWAP, kind of built there a little bit before we get an upside move. That's one of the things that we're going to watch here. And then I would say line in the sand here, 127. I think if this drops below 127, we're really gappy all the way down to 72. So I would actually wait for that to firm up as opposed to trying to play that on any type of curl. However, if we can hold this 150 area, we should be in good shape on VRAX. What would be great if this came down to 150, kind of held, traded sideways, and then curled back up and through the 174. That should give us a 25 to 30 cent profit on a fairly easy to telegraph day trade. So that's what we're looking for here in a best case scenario. Next, we're going to look at UNCY. This is Unisivy. I'm going to butcher that like crazy. So we're just going to pretend I'm not going to have to say it. So this ticker UNCY, this trading up here again. Let's see. Did we have any news on this? I can't remember. Yeah, so looks like the unmet need for innovative and effective treatments for kidney disease. So I'm actually going to go through this here. This was, it looks like a article from one of our writers here. Let me go through that and see if I can get a little bit more information out of this. The interesting thing here is that this is not the first pop, right? We had this first pop here, took us as high as 163. We came back in a little, and now we're curling back towards that high. So it'll be really interesting to see if this can gear up at all and maybe give us that momentum run. What I'm looking at here for today is going to be a clear of this 150, right? We're above the VWAP right now, VWAP at about 140. Let's see if we can clear out 150, and if we have enough drive, maybe we can pop that 157 to the top, and then maybe we can go after the highs from yesterday. FSTX, I think that this is a merger, right? If I recall correctly from my list here. Yeah. Yeah. So F-Star Therapeutics announces CFIUS clearance for proposed acquisition by Envirox Pharma. This I actually have to go in for a little bit more, or into a little bit more. I'm not sure that we're actually going to get a trading opportunity there, but worth mentioning. Ticker SE. This is C Limited. I believe this is a Chinese stock of some sort. C shares are trading higher after the company reported better than expected Q4 EPS. I did take a look at the option chain. Looks pretty liquid. So we might have some decent option plays here on ticker SE. What we'd really like to see, obviously, is a break of that 75, currently at about 71, so a nice 4-point move in there. That's about all I got here. The rest of these are going to be some of the ETFs that we're accustomed to. I know Bed Bath & Beyond is on here, but this is barely up. I don't like this stock, so I'd say stay away from it. So let's take a look at VRAX, UNCY. Crow, I know you mentioned CDIO, right? We'll take a quick look at that. Hopefully we can get Zunaid back here in a second, have him give you his list. CDIO not doing much here this morning, but really has come in for that run. If we get a bounce here, maybe we bounce towards 6. And if we really have some momentum on that bounce, maybe we actually take 6 out and go higher. So we shall see. Now, Zunaid, how you doing? You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. It's interesting. My lights flickered about 3 times, but it is 60 and sunny outside, so I'm not sure what happens from here on out.
So it's not a storm, is what it sounds like.
No, it's a beautiful scene outside. So yeah, no, nothing crazy at all. It's kind of weird. But anyway, let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you for that. SPY first focus here, 407.50, right? So basically just yesterday's highs and lows is what I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Yesterday's highs was 407.50 before we went ahead and smack dab about 3-4 points to the downside, and then 404 went ahead and held. So that's the kind of range I have. Not going to make any moves until and unless we go above or below those 2 points. So we've got our alert set. We should be good to go. Let me go ahead and mute my. There we go. Taking a look at the Qs, 300 is absolutely going to be a level that I'm interested in, as we're right above it, about 20 cents or so. What happens after we go ahead and break that $300 level? That's something to keep an eye on for the Qs. Now, if the market is strong, I am paying attention to Meta, which is going to be the break of about 189.50s. If it can get over that we expect 190 to break as well. And if we can do that, 200 could be a magnet perhaps this week, perhaps next week. Obviously, the Powell speech, which I believe is at 10 Eastern. How is that going to impact things? Not quite sure. However, that is an area that I'm keeping an eye on as a break of 189.50 to the upside on META. Ticker AI, we got a chance to trade this one yesterday successfully, and it's right back down to the $27 level. Not going to touch this until and unless we can get over 30 bucks. So I'm going to go ahead and set an alert there. If we can get over 30 bucks, great. Looking to play this to the upside. If you're looking to go short, a break of 27 can go ahead and get you a point to the downside, in my opinion. Not interested in shorting this, though. I'm more so looking to the long side. I'm going to go ahead and delete this little puppy here. Click, 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 delete. There we go. And then let me go ahead and take care of that there. Cool. Perfect. All right. And then on Microsoft, you've got the 256 area. You can see that was the low yesterday, and we're kind of coming to test that here early on. I already have an alert set from previous trading sessions. Let's see what happens if we go ahead and break that. If you're looking to play Microsoft to the upside, I think you've got a clear area of 260 to the upside to make something shake on the long side. Let's go ahead and take a look at Google. We've got a couple of minutes here. 96. I'm going to go ahead and set an alert there. So you got 96 to the upside, 93 to the downside. And taking a look at NVIDIA, this one was interesting. I got a chance to play this. Yes, actually, we played it together at that 240 retest. We got about a point and went all the way up to 2. I didn't get a chance to participate in all that. But then let me see. I think it was yesterday that I did go ahead and short this as well. Yeah, there it is. Got a chance to short it as it broke VWAP and then covered. Tried to go long here. Tried to go long here unsuccessfully, as I thought it might rally at the end. But it didn't. It didn't quite work out. Let me go ahead and move this. Aaron Thomas, somebody pay my electricity bill. Well, listen, I spent the money that I got on some other stuff. All right. Let's see. What was
some other stuff, huh?
Some other stuff. Yeah, like water bottles.
Is that what those kids call it nowadays?
Water bottles. That's what I was leaning towards. Speaking of which, make sure you guys get your water in. Someone needs to replace their smoke. It is. Yeah, it's me. It's one. Here's the thing. I don't know which one it is. Right? Whenever I go to listen to one of them, I feel like it's the other one. When I go to listen to that one, I feel like it's the other one. So, yes, maybe the solution is to just replace them all, but I'm kind of short. So I don't know. We'll figure life out. Taking a look at Boeing, waiting for the break of about 209.50. If we can go ahead and break this puppy to the downside, I am absolutely interested in going short on this one. You can see we've got our alerts set as well. And VRAX, I think, is the one that you went over earlier. It's the one that we broke news on. Let's see if we get that 150 test, because that's where VWAP is as well. I'd be interested in purchasing. Let's see. We'll purchase about 500 shares there. And then let's see if we can get about another 500 here. My stop loss is going to be the break of about 140 or so. So I'm risking about 10 cents. Definitely, I'm going to be interested to get 10 cents at least to the upside, if not more. That's all I've got. So we got less than a minute, but if anyone else has anything in the chat that they want us to go over, TRK, I don't know why it took me so long to process that. 95 cents would be a break, and that dollar could be a magnet. Your stop loss right there, it would be 85 cents. Real quick, with Powell talking at 10, who knows what type of action we're going to go ahead and get.
All right, so one thing I've been watching is a little bit more of some smaller cap names. And so one thing that I'll bring up that I've never really tracked, and I'd like to maybe make the comment to Ryan. I know Ryan talks a lot about ETFs all the time with kind of his happy hour. Have you ever looked at VBR?
No.
It's
VBR, no.
It's Vanguard small cap value ETF. And then they also have a growth ETF. So this is something that I'm just starting to look into a little bit more, Ryan, because I want to have exposure to all different types of the markets. You know what I mean? Not just be always in the S&P 500. Maybe have some access to some small cap names. So it's another way that I'm looking at it, right? So you guys can check that out. There's VBR, and then I think it's VBG. Yeah. Oh no, hold on. Small. It's the VBK. And that's the growth one. VBK is the growth one. So small cap growth ETF. So just something that I'm keeping an eye out. Why? Because I can take a look at the bigger moving stocks there. So like SRPT is a big moving stock there. Payo, LAZR, of course, we've been keeping an eye out on that one, right? So we'll see what happens today. Let's get to the SPY really quickly just to talk about that. We are pulling back here towards the 404s. We'll see if we crack that 404. To start the day, utilities in the red, everything in the red from the open here. Looks like we're getting a pullback in some energy names, technology down here. So right out the gates, looks like we're on a pullback.
I'll tell you what's not in a pullback is TRKA. So out of the gate here, it looked like it yanked a little bit toward the VWAP and kind of overshot it, but immediately took that new high. Now looking at the level 2 here, went as high as 98 cents here. There's a big seller wall there at 98. But as long as the buying volume stays around, I think there's a decent shot of that getting taken out here. So again, right at 98, even big seller wall there. We're going to go back up and test it again here. They're taking it. They're taking it. It's going to fall, I think. Man, a lot of stock traded there at 98. Rejected so far, but it looks like this might take this here. So 98, let's see if we get a pop above. We might also get a challenge towards $1 here. We shall see. I'm currently watching TRKA from the list here this morning. There's 98 again, 98 up. They're trying. Let's see if that ends up. Let's see if that ends up falling here.
The trade that I am in at the moment is with VRAX. We do have 1,000 shares at $1.52.
There goes TRK.
Stop loss is 138. You're good.
TRK 99 here. Got to think that this goes towards $1, but keep in mind we're already up about 30% here today. Use your risk management based on your cost basis here today. Make sure that you book some of those gains. 99 cents, your high here on TRKA. 99 cents.
On VRAX, what I might do is move my stop loss right below the low a day. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it to about $1.45. So if it breaks $1.45, I'll be out. I did go as high as $1.59. So we were up about 80 bucks on the trade itself, up about 9 cents on it, give or take. But at the moment, this 150 needs to hold. It's currently testing it one more time. Don't know why that's happening. That's stupid. Okay.
Roberto saying trading the open is for rookies. Roberto, the more and more I watch these opening prints, the more and more I agree with you. Been a big fan of staying away for at least the first 10 or 15 minutes so I don't get caught in any of these head fakes and hopefully give myself a better opportunity to trade that. So I'm with you there personally, but we're definitely going to call what we see right around the open here.
Yep. VRAX took a stop loss. Lost about 6-7 cents on that one. Out. We were up about 7 cents on it, but unfortunately, we're looking for about 15. Take a loss on that one. Moving on.
That's one of the things that frustrates me, Zunaid, is that, you know, sometimes with some of these smaller positions, even though they're scalps, I'm not really looking for 7 or 8 cents, right? I'm looking for sometimes at least 10 or 15. Yep. And when you get 8 or 9, close to that, what you were looking for, but not quite, and then you end up stopping because of your rules. That's just part of the game. That's just part of the game. Yeah,
sure is. And now you've got Meta looking to break that 189. I'm going to try a bit of a shot here at Meta. Got filled at 189.89s. And as soon as I go ahead and get filled, it wants to come right back down. Literally the second. That's great. Lovely.
All right. We talked about solar names before the open. 2 of the leading stocks in the S&P 500 here. Solar names, EMPH, First Solar. Right out the gates there. EMPH, First Solar. So I'm going to be looking for maybe SEDG. Also, you can look for TAN. TAN's looking good. I'll be looking at that for potentially maybe a day trade. We'll find out.
UNCY from the list here, button up against 155. Realistically, first of all, volume does look good, at least on these opening candles here. Hey, buddy. Volume does look good on these opening candles, but really needs to get above 155. Again, let's see if we end up getting a push when we break through that level to the upside. We have not been getting those as much as we want. We'll see if that changes here.
All right, trying to get some run here on the pullback. I just need to get to pull back a little bit here, right below 25s, and then I'm going to start getting into run.
Speaking of that VRAX trade there, I know I don't have it up on the screen here, but could be curling and moving through VWAP. That might give it some juice. We shall see.
Yeah,
You can
VWAP
probably
is
wait
right at
one
that.
out, though, yeah.
Yeah, it's right at that 150 level. So you've got VWAP and that 150 psychological number. It'll be interesting to see if it can push through that.
Starter, small starter on run. Willing to add on pullbacks here. Run. Roblox, huge run up. Not too bad. Just looking around what's making moves. You guys keep calling them out there in the chat. What's getting into the green, right? Technology into the green, consumer cyclical, utilities.
Are we watching the Qs? Yeah, we talked about the $300 level, which is what it tested, and it spiked as low as about 84 cents on it, and it kind of propped its way up. Now you've got 301s that are going to be the pre-market highs on the Qs, so keep an eye on that.
And my whole market here looks like it's trying to bounce, including the NASDAQ, which would help that Qs trade. Yeah, nice move on Costco. I didn't catch that one at all, Jay. Good stuff there. Quick 25 after the low after the earnings dip. Actually, that's one I should chart because I left on Thursday, and I know Costco reported, oh, they came down. They gave me an opportunity too. That's what you get for not paying attention, folks.
That's how it is sometimes, man.
Look, I'm in no position to complain. I'm not going to start complaining here. My Friday was pretty damn good. The market will be there for another day. I will get another opportunity. I'm sure of it.
All right, let's see what happens here.
SE, by the way.
AAL,
I'm sorry.
Nice push into AAL, UAL. So that's looking really good today. I'll show you guys that really, really quickly. UAL, of course, I'm swing trading AAL. Nice little move right back up.
Yeah, so we've still got UNCY trying to take out this 155. I also see in a couple of the chat members talking about it. Ticker SE here. Nice move out of the open, going right towards that high here. 75, that high. We're only about 40 cents away. Options are flowing here. So if you want to trade this via options, you can. Decent spread here, though. About a 40-cent spread in some of these contracts, 30 to 40 cents. So not the easiest here, but SE good out of the gate here. I have no position on this one. I have nothing, no angle or anything on this.
Netflix just bouncing off the VWAP. That's interesting. Just got a little bit of ad there and run. Didn't get the extra ads on the pullbacks. It's already up to 25. It's going to look for pullbacks to add on that name.
Donkey Kong setting up here. Of course, that's DKNG. I'm just calling it Donkey Kong for Mitch's sake. Looks like they're going to try to take out the double top at about 2150 on the daily chart. This is a level that we have identified a number of times. It actually goes back to March, maybe even some support back at January, the beginning of last year. So looks like DraftKings is going to try and take that out here. Pushed up to the high, came back in. Let's see if we can actually ram through that 25. This would actually be a decent swing trade right here on DraftKings. In fact, let me look at that. Maybe we'll start setting that up here. And you know what? Looking at the options chain here, with only 10 days left on the March contract, I think it might be time to start looking at the April contract. Got 45 days till expiry on there, so prices are going to be a little bit higher. But man, DraftKings, this is really good. These, tell you what, these these $20 calls for April look pretty good. Not a ton of volume here today. We're going to stock this one. DKNG, I'm going to put that on my notes here. DK. This is going to be a trade just for you, baby.
I love it. Love it.
Facebook looking to come on. Facebook's about 2%, so it's relatively strong, quote unquote, but still nothing really. As I did go and get stopped out, did not want to go ahead and hold that 189.50 level and move to the upside.
Yeah, UNCY, while we were talking about that, pushed through that 155, went as high as 163 and kind of came back in. Let's see where UNCY settles. By the way, TRKA has been breaking down since setting that high of 99 cents, currently at about 87. We're actually below the VWAP here. So hopefully you guys used that push to at least lighten some of your position into a nice little gain. Oh, we got the spring bird show going on out there, and Buddy is mesmerized. He is staring at that hole. These birds are gonna make another nest out of that hole this year. We're gonna be able to watch all of those younglings come out. That's gonna be fun.
The new blood, man. New blood on the street.
Spring is in the air. That is for sure.
All right, getting some pullback ads there for run. Just got one there on the
UNCY
pullback.
Back up. Man, Costco going for that 395 spot. Good call on that, Jay. Jay, you have a longer term trade. I'm guessing you're still probably in that. Maybe you just took a scalp here today. Anyway, nice job on Costco. Yeah, UNCY. Remember, we had an intraday high of 163. They just took it. UNCY 166, went as high as 168 on that push here. UNCY, this is going, folks. Hooked one.
There you go. There you go. Let's get a team out there. You guys out there, smash the like button. You guys enjoying some day trading action live right here in front of you guys.
And they brought in a bid here right under, too, on UNCY. A little bit of a spot here at 170. They're hitting it, though. This looks like this is probably going to fall. That bid under at 167 is real, at least so far. They took that out.
SPY coming down towards the 404.20 area, just to keep that in mind, right?
Big bid at 165 here on UNCY.
EMPH back at VWAP.
Here we go. 170 back up on UNCY. They're taking it. It's coming. There we go. And through. They walked that bid up from 165 to 169. They cleared it out on the backside here. Here we go. Jay, love it. Really appreciate this. Ryan, Costco always seems to sell off in earnings and get bought. It's a typical pattern. Monster, I believe that's Monster Energy, Bev, also trades like that too. So guys, this is gold here by Jay. Notice how he's not telling you to buy anything, but he's giving you a pattern that he's recognized, and you can do this on any stock. If you notice that there is a repeatable pattern, trade it. Trade that pattern as long as it sticks around. Looks like Jay, looks like you were hitting there on Costco. I might join you on this next print here, because I've noticed that too. I'm just such a Costco bull. It's hard for me to admit downside, but you're right on this. I think I might join you next time. Great trade here. By the way, UNCY did take that high. We got as high as 172 here. Doing a good job holding up here. See if we can keep pushing on UNCY. Nice little move here. So if you took some of this, I would suggest maybe lightening it up. Book some of those gains.
Looking around to see if there's anything I like. At the moment, there isn't anything. More so just a little bit of downside bias if things do want to turn around. But again, we've got about 16 minutes till Powell, whether you think it's a market moving event or not. TBD.
Powell. What will Powell do? All right, built up a position here on run at 25.01. Just looking to see if we're going to get another little push here.
Will giving us the love early. My fave 3 on Trade TV. Let's get it. Smash the like, please. Love it, Will. Hopefully you're doing well this morning, my man. By the way, VW, this guy, we talked about this, or VW, excuse me, WW. We talked about this a little earlier. Someone else mentioned this in the chat. Let me get your name there. Oh, this is Ray Marks. WW having a good day today. Yeah, so it's really kind of drifting up here. Trading higher despite worse than expected Q4 results and Q1 guide below estimate. Company also announced it will acquire Weekend Health. So I'm actually not sure on that or the synergy, but good morning here today. Looks like it's back testing 5. Let's see if it holds 5 and then makes a move towards the highs here, WW. Yeah, VRAX. Sorry.
Now I'll only add on run if I get back above the entry on the rip to the upside through 25.10. Looking at this one to see if we can start getting a nice little push here. And then just looking around, right? We'll see what happens. SPY did get a nice bounce off that 404.10 spot. I feel like we're going to be a little bit choppy, though, until that Powell speech. Of course, 10 a.m., watch out, team.
Also, VRAX looking like it's setting up here, might cross through the VWAP here. If we get that with some increased volume, might have a trade there, especially if it tries to take out the upside of its range here at about 175. TRKA came in, looks like it bounced off of what, about 82 cents? Might be making its way back up to VWAP here at 90 cents, and UNCY took that next pop higher, high of 178 before coming back in. Might be, we've seen it happen a few times here on UNCY. It actually might be better. You might be better off waiting for this to kind of come back in before actually taking the entry, as opposed to trying to trade that top side break. So we'll see here. This one worked pretty well. This 155 break worked pretty well. And there we go. UNCY pushing back up. Let's see if it takes out 178 here. All right, some more good context. Sorry, Mitch. More good context here by Jay. SE, almost 2,000 weekly 80 calls. Boy, I missed that on my scanner. I'll go back and take a look here. 2,000 weekly 80 calls, but not sure if it gets there by Friday. So again, those are going to expire this week, those 2,000 calls. The 80 calls, we'll see if it ends up getting there. Jay Rice also saying the expected move was 8.25. We're ripping through that now. Good stuff there. That expected move is calculated by using the near month option. UNCY going higher here. Bang. It's got to go through 180 now. There's 180, a little bit of size there. They took it. This is going. They refilled that right at the end there. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. 185 now. Still a little bit of size there. UNCY. We've got a lot of action here this morning, folks.
Now you've got the Qs looking to break 301, session highs on the Qs.
Trout Bum, thanks for the 54% on SE. Let's go, Trout. Nice job.
Might get stopped out and run here. They're already pulling back a little bit. EMPH pulling back also. Baba is getting a little bit of a lift off of that. I feel like the SE getting up move. You can look at maybe some China names to get some sympathy move off of that. PDD also moving higher. JD starting to recover. So take a look at maybe some of those China names.
Looks like some of the AI names getting a pop. I see SoundHound popping again. Now it's come back in, but it popped as soon as we opened. How's AI doing?
JD.
Did you guys say that you were trading AI yesterday?
Oh, we did trade it yesterday, yes.
Big run yesterday. Nice.
Yeah, we traded at the open, I believe it was. When I reclaimed, let me see, I can...
VWAP?
Let's see. I can see exactly where we did. 28.99 is where we had purchased it at 10 o'clock in the morning. In that
Potential
candle.
double top there at 32. Could break if it goes through that. It could run a little bit more on AI. AI, that's really seemed to be the best trade so far in that space. Seems to be the most consistent, I should say. Maybe not best.
Let's take 2 with that move that's happening in SE. Nice little move and take 2. What about maybe some of the penny stocks in that area? Just looking at some penny stocks in that area, right? Too bad Zynga doesn't exist anymore, right?
Which Zika?
The mobile gamer.
Oh, Zynga, you mean?
Yeah, remember? It went away.
Yeah, that was the Words with Friends guy, wasn't it? No, maybe not. Maybe I'm mixing that up.
Got stopped out there and run on that pullback. Could have got stopped hunted there, but hey, it is what it is. Just got out of that run. Took a hit today to start the day. Try to bounce back to him. Still could recover too. It was just one of those littles. I got stopped out. Maybe pushed it a little bit. It hung around that 25 so much. We're seeing a lot of fills coming back to 25. But hey, it is what it is. Run, missed that move. We'll see if we catch it a little bit later.
UNCY might be going back towards those highs here on UNCY. Boy, that's been really strong this morning.
301 still resistance on the Qs. Keeping an eye on a 300 break on the Qs. That seems to be the next trade, or a pop above 301. Either way, that's the trade I'm looking at.
Remember, 9:52.
8 minutes.
And when that first reaction of the algos comes, I have a feeling it's going to go very wide on the SPY and move the SPY in a huge range. So just be careful, not getting head faked in one direction. I know I'm going to take a little bit of a second after that for it to play out, and then I'll look for moves. Not trying to jump through the Powell speech and all of a sudden him say one other word and all of a sudden, bow. So I got to watch the swing trades often during speeches like that.
Tesla trying to bounce here off 190.
If AAL gets through 1660s, I'm going to take some profit in that one so that we can finally get there towards the profit levels. We're trying to get through 2 daily highs of 1655s. Will we expand through that? You guys remember that one, Zynga. Bug remembers it.
All right, VRAX.
Come on.
One thing here to look on VRAX, just because we're talking about day trading here real quick, you want to watch this rollover here, right? This rollover here about 138. This price rolls over, could see more downside. And remember, got this spot right here, about 26. It's pretty gappy if it breaks that. So just we're still up here. And if you had this from yesterday or really any point in the past, you're probably up pretty nicely on it. Just don't give it all back, even if you have to rebuy it.
Looking if I can get that airline expansion already. Let's go. Let's go, AAL. The swinger. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring in our other stream and we can listen in to Pal speaking, right? Why not?
Is that now?
It's about 5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Good deal. Mitch, you're doing so many streams. I just wasn't sure which one. I just had to clarify.
You know how
OnlyFans.
Exactly. I know how it is. Yep.
Zunaid, you got it. I'm telling you, I got the routine for you, my friend. We're gonna have you dunking. We're gonna have you ripping. You're OnlyFans, right?
His OnlyFans.
I was like, wait, for what?
What did I miss? What? That's my only cut. What
happened? Zunaid tried to shoot fire, but I got loaded, baby.
You got loaded. You've got the Qs trying to break that 301 once again to the upside.
Rivian down 10%.
Having a little bit of trouble.
When Rivian gets to $7, Michael, let me know because I'm going to take a long-term investment in Rivian.
I'm going to try a short here on the SPY just to see if it breaks session highs. I'll be out.
SPY already coming back to VWAP, just showing you that indecision right before the pow comes on. How's the Pinterest and Snap today? Ooh, still strong, man. Could TikTok be going away? I mean, Snap was a nice little trade right out the gates from 1170 to 1260. That's a 7% move that we missed today. Got to stop talking about that Snap trade and Pinterest trade. Got to start looking at it. That's why you see Meta probably getting a nice little recovery here. But I'm looking at Snap and Pinterest. Those are interesting. Bouncing right now. We'll see what happens after the Powell speech. If you see them get pulled back big, I'll look to see if they recover with the Powell speech. AAL, that's that middle chart here, looking to see if it can expand there towards 1660s, take some profits on the swing of AAL. 1586, the entry in that one. Tesla going lower. That does not look good there for Tesla and for the market. Microsoft looks like it's starting to reject also. Could reject here from the 257 down to 256.30s. I don't want to get short right now because I feel like if I get short right now and all of a sudden Powell says something bullish right out the gates, next thing you know, my trade just gets completely wrecked. So I'm going to be on the sidelines here through the speech, looking into listening in, try to get us what we hear from the speech.
All right, our SPY short is semi-working out, but again, with Powell coming on in less than 3 minutes, not quite sure how this one is going to play out. So depending on where we are at in about 2 minutes, I might just close this one out because I don't want to. I want to trade based off of text and not a random word he might say, and the markets go
smart.
Yeah, and as you can see, though, the Qs. I think it was here. Let me go ahead and remove a couple of things here so we can see a little bit more cleanly.
Actually,
it was the 350 that was kind of holding it as support a bit here. So now we're starting to crack a little bit below that. But again, with Powell speaking in 2 minutes, none of that will matter, in my opinion, as he can say something and it'll react.
And of course, if you guys want to listen in directly to this speech, we have it up. We'll be giving it up for you guys. Here's a direct link to that so you can have it on your own ears. But I'm going to bring it in through kind of my speakers right now. So I'm going to try to control the volume a little bit so it's not just, taking over us, so we can still talk about our trades while that's going on. It's going to be lowered. So if for any reason you need it higher volume, please just click the link. I don't want everyone yelling at me, higher volume.
I like the impression that you're doing of all of the people yelling at you there. That might have been the best part.
Trust me, there will be.
Real.
I went ahead and I closed the SPY trade. Just again, it was just to see if it wasn't 10 o'clock speech time, I would have probably held on to it. But for now, I'm going to wait for a 404 break and possibly a retest.
And real quick,
turn around on AAL. What you got, Ryan?
Tesla continuing to break down here. Looked like it was trying to bounce, but breaking down here. Looking at some of our small caps, UNCY pulled back close to the VWAP, didn't quite get it there, trying to bounce. I want to say that this bounce right now is probably a fake out. We probably do come back in towards the VWAP. We'll take a look. The other one here that we're looking at is TDUP, right? This is ThreadUp shares. They're trading higher after company reported strong earnings and guidance. Now, we did pop as high as 260. We've kind of come back in here. I saw Crow saying that this is setting up. This might be setting up here. We get some sideways trading and maybe a volume pop or expansion through that VWAP. We could be in good shape here. You might be able to trade it through the VWAP towards the 260 highs if the momentum is right. So keep an eye on TDUP here as well. UNCY. Let's flip over to that one because this one's been strong. Real strong. This is that bounce that I was talking about. Does not appear to be a fake out yet.
And
come on,
we did go ahead. Yeah, we got that move on Powell at 10 right on the dot. It was to the downside, so maybe I should have held on to my short, but that's hindsight as that one goes ahead and drops below.
Yeah.
When does he get done talking is the question.
He's not even on.
That. He's
not even talking. He has not talked at all.
Yeah,
he has not said one word. That's the fun part. He hasn't said one word yet, and the market's going down, team.
Big plunge there. And real quick, just on UNCY, I finally got my charts to cooperate with me here. So what I was looking at was this yank and this sell-off. I was expecting this to come all the way in towards the VWAP, and we actually did not get that. Makes it a little bit more difficult to trade, and I guess unless you're already in it and you're looking for more upside. Was thinking that this was going to come in more towards the VWAP. Did not do that. Be very wary of buying this bounce here. To me, feels like a setup here. In fact, we might be getting an intraday downtrend here if this continues to break down. We'll see. We'll check in on it.
All right, team. He has not begun to speak there. I will show you guys that right here. We have it up. We have that stream. I'll let you guys know as soon as he comes on. It says coverage to begin momentarily. That Microsoft short, I'm with you, Zunaid. I'll feel the the hindsight 2020. That would have been a nice one there at 257. Yeah. It's down to 255.20s there. Was looking for a move to 256.
I'm gonna try to play a quick scalp off of the SPY off of this 401, and it already went. Look at that. So here, let me show you guys.
SPY.
So the reason I went ahead and played this is quite simple, right? It was just a scalp off of the 401.98s, which if you go ahead and look left, you can see that was a level. Here, let me go ahead and put the 15-minute up. That was kind of the level that I was keeping an eye on, because you can see resistance, then it held as support, then it moved to the downside. So for me on this short, it was like, all right, cool. My level to go ahead and take profits, one of them was going to be this 403.24. Then the other one was going to be this 402. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to take a short because I covered well before. So there's a quick little scalp here. Let's go to the minute chart so you guys can see it. Purchased it at 402.16. Sold it at 402.49. Quick 250 shares of the SPY. So I would not be surprised if we matter of fact, if it comes back to go ahead and test this level, I'll go ahead and purchase instead of 150. We'll go ahead and purchase instead of 250, we'll purchase about 150. I don't want to chase it, save some money if I can. Because especially with him not starting to talk yet, we already had a reaction move. Maybe we get a little bit of a bounce. Who knows? But here we go.
That's a good point.
That's a start. So I'm going to go ahead and risk about $50. However, I'm going to look to see if I can make approximately $100 for a 2-to-1 trade. Could work out, could not. First time I did, second time, let's see.
And I absolutely love this. I'm watching the chat here. We got people lined up on the short side. We got people lined up on the light. We got people lined up on the long side. Easy for me to say. Urban Farms, I know that you had suggested the all-telling 8-ball. What question do you want me to ask the Magic 8-ball? I'm assuming it has something to do with Powell here, but let me know. We can go ahead and do that for sure.
All right, now we're getting started here.
Economic pundits and politicians who lecture us.
Ryan, Mitch linked the link to the speech in the chat. So if you scroll up, you should be able to find that.
Yeah, you should be able to find that.
While reporting record.
Do you guys hear it?
Increases.
Yeah.
Sure do. We also hear me losing money. $50 on that scalp, not working out.
Working
mute yourself, losing money, so that we can stay in the positive one. Thanks.
Security is everyone who gets their income from a paycheck each month.
It's just a part of the game, Zunaid. Just a part of the game, my friend.
Same Americans
look at that
who stand to lose the most if the Fed's actions.
Okay. So here we are going to do a really quick Magic 8-ball. This is courtesy of Urban Farms Project, if you don't mind. So real quick, Magic 8-ball, is the market going to be well?
Workers are
asked for green or red. Urban Farms, you have to ask yes or no. So which one do you want me to do, green or red? And I will ask
our
you that.
fight against inflation. It's a complex problem.
Now we're going to leave me here.
The Magic 8-ball is colorblind, so that's why I can't be green or red.
Screen to be a little bit more embarrassed because we there we go. Boom.
Raising interest rates won't end Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. Raising interest rates won't prevent avian flu from devastating.
Like trades that I'm thinking about, teams. I'm thinking also about Pinterest. He said green today. So
yeah, here we go. So here we go, Mitch. Will the SPY be green today after Powell is done flapping his gums?
Jacked up prices far beyond the increase in their costs.
All right.
Last year, corporate profits hit a record.
What do we got?
Corporate PR.
I can't see it. What does it say?
I can't see it either. I'm trying to see it on the screen. What the hell?
Their costs are going up. The workers just want to be paid.
It says my reply is
no
no.
other choice, they tell us. Yeah,
My reply is no. Sorry about that. It will not focus on this very well. My reply is no. So this is going to be a red market today per the 8-ball. Take your bets, folks. 8-ball says red.
Even global bankers called on the Fed to identify this profiteering.
All right, I want to hear Jerome, Mr. Brown. I appreciate you, Chairman, but I'm here for Powell.
The Fed
TRKA, this is why you got to take those gains earlier, all the way back now to red.
So
Please tell me you folks close that for a gain, please.
Interesting trade for me is Pinterest pulling back here and Snapchat. So keeping an eye on those.
Commodity prices is more profit margin expansion than wage cost pressures. Think about that.
So Mr. Brown's talking about wage pressures. He's talking about Ukraine, that we're not going to be able to save that. We're going to increase inflation, things like that.
The broadening of inflation beyond commodity prices is more profit
Tesla
margin
lows 187 now. Got a huge breakdown from 191 on Tesla.
Fed, understandably, the Fed can't force
the one that I'm a little frustrated on, team, just to kind of talk about a trade again. AAL goes to 1655 right to the kisser and pulls back. A little frustrated on that swing trade.
Policies that end up helping Wall Street, the largest corporations in the country, the wealthiest people in the country. Because let's be clear what we're talking about when people use the economic speak that can cloud this conversation. Cooling the economy means laying off workers. Lowering demand means workers.
Mr. Brown has something
of course, there are times
moral to say today. Can't blame him on bringing it up, but
seen encouraging trends.
He's going off. He's setting up a big question here, I think.
Instead of lowering
he's just saying that
again, making people
what the Fed is doing is not hurting the rich. It's only hurting the middle and the lower class.
We can bring
nice job, grateful to God, on exiting that early. Man, you almost top ticked it, baby. Good job.
With the CHIPS Act, with the Inflation Reduction Act, with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. For the first time in decades, we're finally recognizing the damage that I and many of my colleagues warned the corporate offshoring would do to our economy. Look at East Palestine, Ohio, a community that Senator Vance.
COSM. Well, we talked about this one early, really quick. I'll go back to your chart here in a sec, Mitch. We talked about this one earlier. Well, the chat did. Credit where credit is due. Chat was over this. I was not. COSM, nice little bust here above 416. Decent trade here on that volume expansion. We've seen this one move before. What are you doing, Kat?
Team, Tesla with the flush on the downside there. Tesla, big hit. Big hit there. Look at Tesla down to 186.
I was there last week. I was talking to the sheriff at the 1820 Candle Company. He was talking about how the last one closed just a few years
ago. All right, I'm going to lower down Mr. Brown. I'll let you know when I start hearing pow.
Okay. Okie dokie.
He's just talking like about all the situations that are happening.
Yeah, he's recapping it before he drills into him.
Yep. You know how it goes.
Yep.
But when he goes to speak to Powell, I'm gonna look to see if we get the algo reaction to the upside.
I was wondering that myself.
Stocks like Pinterest and Snap, it could be running against what the market's doing. Look how Pinterest is holding the VWAP. Oh, not Pinterest, Snap. Snap here on the left-hand side is holding the VWAP on the pullback. So I'm looking at something like that to see if we can, maybe get that pullback, and then it's holding like kind of an hourly resistance area, which is around the 1208. Seeing if Pinterest can recover 27. Microsoft shows me that the market's going down, right? That's definitely taking a hit. What about the Google 90? Are we going to get back down there, baby?
Oh, here we go, Mitch. So how about that Google 90?
Did you see that move off the 90? Did you see that, Ryan?
Defended like crazy.
That's the first time I think I've ever really caught like more institutional action, because that had to be a big boy to turn that bad boy around like he did.
I mean, look at it here, Mitch. This is my favorite. That Google that we were talking about. Oh, did we?
I got you. No worries.
So right in here on the 15-minute chart, it becomes really apparent. You might have had it on an hourly. I can't remember what chart you had.
Yeah, not a worry.
But basically, look at this, Mitch. As soon as we crossed above 91, 2, 3, 4 days in a row, they were like, nope, we're not going beneath 90. No. And now here we are. We're as high as 96 just a couple of sessions later. So no, 90 absolutely getting defended here on Google with the quickness.
They're essentially threatening.
Uh-oh. Crow's giving you some foreshadowing here. The party is just starting on COSM.
Also cause unimaginable.
Look out, folks.
COSM. Yeah, that thing is taking off, man. It's going against the market. Just be careful there, but definitely pushing strong. One thing I check is the volume. At least you do have a decent size volume, 1.6 million shares. On average, this thing trades about 1.6 million shares on a whole day. And in the first 30 or 45 minutes, you're getting that volume. So that's not a bad stock to watch for. I'd look for quick pullbacks to 450s or maybe 430s. I don't think you might even get that. That's just my outlook for a quick pullback opportunity here. Maybe 445 on a quick pullback, but it's looking like it's trying to get to 5 here. We'll see if it does get to that. Then we'll look for it, see if we get a halt. All right, Mr. Scott's coming in here now. So
looking at my prepared remarks.
What happened really is that so there's already been prepared remarks. And this was released on Friday, though. That's why I'm not freaking out too much. They were released on Friday, and it doesn't really matter now. That's what you're seeing all those articles about. Like the Wall Street Journal released an article about how the Fed is prepared to speed up interest rates and rise if the economic strength continues. That's why we're seeing this first downside action, team. So we'll see what happens when they start doing the Q&A, like where he can answer. That's when we can get something different. That's when we're going to be waiting for.
Brown, I thought to myself, fascinating, truly fascinating. I concluded.
VRAX really struggles.
These government guys, they talk so interesting. They're like fascinating.
I am
fascinating. He just wants to get attention to his speak right now. So he's using big words, try to draw the attention.
Nice job, Judge. Recognizing that your patience kept you safe. Good discipline there, Judge. Keep it up. TRKA halted down. Absolute bloodbath here on TRKA. Please tell me you guys all are safe.
Snap
on that.
Bouncing back already. That's the one that looks interesting for me to take now if I just wanted to take a trade, right? I talked about it. I'm going to try to get it here on a pullback at 12.25. It's already moving to 34s. Let's see if I can just get a little bit of a pullback here and then try to get in it.
That the progressives in this country who caused a 9.1% inflation would then turn somewhere besides in the mirror to see the absolute devastation caused by their
taking a look at Tesla here. I tried to get filled at 180.
Tesla. To the upside?
UNCY back to VWAP here.
All right.
Out of control inflation caused by the
SPY. I'll put it on the right hand side. No fill there for Snap. Looking for pullback opportunity for it to come back towards 1260. For that being mentioned, I'm going to put Pinterest in the middle because I also was looking at that one back above 27. So if I don't get filled here, I could go Pinterest at 2690s here towards a 27 move. Very similar kind of style of moves on both of them. So I feel like they're running hand in hand. So if I can't catch one, I can maybe go for the other. You can see the pattern right there off the hourly chart. In the middle for Pinterest, Snap, very similar, right? Look at this hourly.
Look at that move. Right through that 12, too.
So we'll see if it like kind of continues holding that prior resistance from yesterday as support today. And then for Pinterest, it looks interesting above 27. And if for some reason Jerome can say something positive and we get a little bit of a spike back in the SPY and it comes back through, let's say 404.25s, I have a feeling we'd get a nice move in these. So it's all about just kind of take your risk and reward, right? You guys choose what you like. I can't get Snap on this pullback, so I'm going to try to get it in on Pinterest.
Those of you guys trading Blue Bio or Bridge Bio, B Bio, nice job on there. Nice little move through that pre-market high, 17.25. You got a full $1 or more on that.
Prices go through the roof.
Market's trying to bottom here. It's trying.
What do you guys think in the chat? You guys think TikTok's going to get banned?
I mean, I've said I would never install that on my phone. So I might be biased for that side. But yeah, I think it is. I think what that'll mean is that'll give another company a chance to fill that gap, if you will, whether that be Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, whatever.
The better way is to trust the American people. And when you do so, we don't have to have
canceling Snap for right now. It's just kind of slow action. We're not getting like a rip or anything, so I'm just canceling that order.
Challenges in our economy, so that today versus 18 months ago, the price of the same.
Buddy, what are you doing? You cannot make up your mind.
I see some of you guys in the chat over there. You guys are funny.
Our chat is awesome. Our chat's hilarious.
Especially in like a Fed kind of chat, right? People don't hold back. Let's just say that much.
No, that they're definitely invested in the Fed happenings. So I love it. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, Snap's still holding above the VWAP. That looks a little stronger to me, but let's put it on a 15-minute.
It cost $433 more than it did a year ago.
SPY just hanging out here.
It is
I'll be honest, that watching the move that the market put in here, even in some of these small caps, I don't feel great about taking new trades here. Like this UNCY overshot its VWAP and is now bouncing. But honestly, like I don't feel good about this. I feel like all of this stuff could easily reverse here. Look at this move here. Right down to VWAP, bounced just great, but just didn't feel great about it.
Devastation of a snarly supply chain.
NTR is one I'm looking at for pullbacks here.
Run by my friends in the progressives. Unbelievable.
Nice.
But to get to you.
All right, 78.80s will be the risk there. Looking for a little bit of a pullback towards 79.30s here for NTR to get back into a swing trade name. I was able to hit 6% last week. So that's NTR's name. Daily pullback. Was looking for around 80s. We've already cut through 80s. We went even to like 78, 84s. So looking to try to get in here on a lower 79 entry and then start risking down there to those levels. It's one of the stocks that I like based off of a monthly chart. So MOS is also on a big pullback. You can look for that one, but I'd have to wait down there towards 53.25s. That's MOS. Snap still holding in there. Could make that next move any moment. And Pinterest, I'm still looking at it. It could go back through 27. We'll see what happens today. A lot of action.
Finally,
Apple's still bearish too. I'd keep that on just watch just to see it like kind of flip back to the green. Look at a snap chart. I kind of like it, but would I have gotten filled on that pullback? Yes. I would have got 12.27s filled, but remember I canceled. I told you guys about it. I didn't get into Snapchat on that pullback. Let's see if it actually takes off here. If it does, I'll probably go for the Pinterest trade. All right, finally, can we get to the goods part?
That helped illuminate some of the necessary challenges that we face as a nation and your answers to it. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Finally.
Right.
Thank you for allowing me to use it.
Today we'll hear from Chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, on monetary policy in the state of our economy. And I don't expect Chair Powell to weigh in on the mini debate we just had, but I think we all know that the debt increase was much larger under President Trump and a Republican Senate than it has been since. Chair Powell, thank you for your service and your testimony today.
I hate comments like that. That's just because
Chairman
of the environment.
Ranking Member
Come
Scott
on.
and other members of the committee,
it's also because of
appreciate the
COVID.
opportunity to present
Which
the
you
Federal
didn't
Reserve's
mention.
semi-annual monetary policy.
I don't like comments like that either, Mitch. It
My
doesn't
colleagues
matter
and I
what
are
side it's
acutely
for. It's
aware
just
that high
inflammatory.
inflation is causing significant hardship, and we're strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal.
2%.
You know
Over
who
the
Powell
past year,
sounds like
we've
to me?
taken forceful actions
Patrick
to tighten
Lane.
the stance of monetary policy. We have covered
He
a lot of
does.
ground.
You know what? There's a
The full
little bit of
effects
that in there,
tightening so
Zunaid. That's a
far
really good
are yet
spot.
to
For
be
those of
felt.
you that don't know the great
Even
Patrick
so,
Lane,
we have
got
more work to
a
do.
great calmness
Our
and
policy
about him,
actions are
but he
guided by
does
our dual
kind of
mandate to
sound like
promote
Paul. I'm gonna bring that up to him. Have you told him that before yet?
prices
I haven't.
without
I
price
just thought about it
stability.
right now.
The
I was like,
economy
why do
does
I know
not
that
work for
voice? And I
anyone.
was like,
In particular,
Patrick.
without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of labor market conditions that benefit all. I'll review the current economic situation before turning to monetary policy. The data from January on employment, consumer spending, manufacturing production.
This is the
and
prepared
inflation
speech team. You can
Yeah.
tell it's
partly
prepared.
reversed the
Why? Because he's
softening
just reading.
trends
He
that we
literally is
dated
looking down and
just
reading
a
off of
month
notes.
Yeah, he's just
Some of
reading.
this reversal, like the
TRKA, by the way, while this is
seasonally
all
warm
going
weather
on, Crow's been all
January
over it.
in
No
much of the
surprise
country.
here. Just an
Still,
absolutely massive
breadth of
bounce
the
on
reversal, along with
TRKA.
revisions
Go
to
ahead
the
and pull that
previous
up here
quarter,
for you,
Okay.
folks.
I got you on
suggests
the
that
bottom left. If you want.
inflationary pressures are running higher than expected at the time of our previous FOMC meeting. From a broader perspective, inflation has moderated somewhat since the middle of last year, but remains well above the the FOMC's longer run objective of 2%.
I like how they
The
changed that
12-month
word.
change in
Longer
total
run.
PCE inflation has slowed from its peak of
18
7% in
cent
June to
bounce on
5.4%
TRKA
in
off that
January,
sell-off and
as energy
halt.
prices have
Holy
declined
smokes.
and supply chain bottlenecks have eased. Over the past 12 months, core PCE inflation, which excludes the volatile food and energy prices,
Market is
was
trying to hold in
4.7%.
here.
As supply chain bottlenecks have eased and tighter policy has
UNCY
restrained
trying to
demand,
push off its VWAP.
inflation in the core goods sector has fallen. And while housing services inflation remains too high, the flattening out in rents evident in recently signed leases points to a deceleration
CRM's
in
another
this
one on my
component of
target list
inflation
if we can
over
go
the year
bullish.
ahead.
I like
That
that
said,
chart.
there is little sign of disinflation thus far in the category of core services excluding housing, a category that accounts for more than half of core consumer expenditures. To restore price stability, we'll need to see lower inflation in this sector, and there will very likely be some softening in the labor market conditions. Although nominal wage gains,
We're going to keep
slowed
talking about
somewhat
the
in
different
recent
trades that we're
months, they
making. Mitch
remain
provided a
above what is
link. If you
consistent
wanted
with
to go there and
2%
watch it
inflation and current
uninterrupted,
trends
you're
in
welcome to
productivity.
do so.
Strong wage growth
Yeah, I'll
is
throw it up
good for
again for
workers,
you
but
guys.
only
Thank
if
you.
it's not eroded by inflation.
There you guys. If you
Turning
want
to
turn it
growth,
up as loud as
the
you
U.S.
want.
economy has slowed significantly last year, with real GDP rising at a below-trend pace of 0.9%.
All right, there's
Although consumer
Snap
spending
already
appears to be
moving. I'm going to
expanding
go
at a
for
solid
Pinterest
pace this
here.
quarter, other recent indicators
Snap is
point to
making a little
subdued
lift here,
growth
and I
of
also see
spending,
CRM.
spending and production.
So I'm going to take a
Activity in
tight
the
risk
housing
here
sector
for
continues
Pinterest,
to
10-cent
weaken,
risk
largely
here.
reflecting
And then I'm
higher
looking
mortgage
at
rates.
CRM for
Higher
potential
interest rates
entry
and
also.
slower output
Snap's
growth
already moving
also appear to be
1248.
weighing on business fixed investment.
TRKA is still
Despite the
moving.
slowdown in growth, the labor market remains extremely tight. The unemployment rate was 3.4% in January, its lowest level since 1969. Job gains remained very strong in January, while the supply of labor has continued to lag. As of the end of December, there were 1.9 job openings for each unemployed individual, close to the
Lots of
all-time
stuff
peak
bouncing here,
reported
folks.
last March, while unemployment insurance claims have remained near historical lows. Turning to monetary policy. With inflation well above our longer run goal of 2%, and with the labor market remaining extremely tight, the FOMC has continued to tighten the stance of monetary policy, raising interest rates by 4.5 percentage points over the past year. We continue to anticipate that ongoing increases
Starter
in the
on a
target
swing
range for the
trade
federal funds
position
rate
for
will be
CRM.
appropriate in
Ooh,
order to attain
does
a
that have
stance
anything to do with
monetary
what we're
policy
hearing from
that
Powell?
is sufficiently restrictive
No,
to return
all to
inflation
do with
2%
the hourly
over
chart
time.
and earnings chart.
Okay.
In addition,
cool.
we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet.
Apple recovering.
We are seeing the effects of our policy actions on demand in the most interest-sensitive sectors of the economy.
Bitcoin back to
It
even
will take time,
already.
however,
Wow.
for the full effects of monetary restraint to be realized, especially on inflation. In light of the cumulative tightening of monetary policy and the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity
SE
and
back at
inflation,
VWAP.
the committee slowed the pace of interest rate increases over its past two meetings. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting, taking into account the totality of the incoming data and their implications for the outlook for economic activity and inflation. Although inflation has been moderating in recent months, the process of getting inflation back down to 2% has a long way to go and is likely to be bumpy. As I mentioned, the latest economic data have come in stronger than expected, which suggests that the ultimate level of interest rates is likely to be higher than previously anticipated. If the totality of the data were to indicate that faster tightening is warranted, we'd be prepared to increase the pace of rate hikes.
Trying to get SE on
Restoring
pullbacks.
price
I'll let you
stability
guys
will
know.
likely require that we maintain a restrictive stance of monetary policy for some time. Our overarching focus is using our tools to bring inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation
Prepared
expectations
speeches,
well
man.
anchored.
Why just read them?
Restoring price stability
We
is
can read them.
essential
Thank you, pal.
to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run.
They
The
just
historical
feel
record
dry.
cautions
They
strongly
feel
against
like
prematurely
they're
AI
adjusting
written,
policy.
you know, it was just
We will
written
stay
by
the
Chat
course until the job
GPT,
is
probably.
Can you imagine what a
We
scandal
understand
that would be
our
if we
communities, families,
discovered that Powell's
I'm about to
speech was
ask
written
it.
by
I'm about to
Chat
ask it. Did Powell just
GPT?
copy?
Public mission
Well,
Oh,
you can.
that
There are
would be funny.
websites where you
Everything we
can
to
copy and
achieve our
paste, and it'll
maximum
scan it for you.
price stability goals.
Yeah,
Let's-
Iris. A lot of scanners have that technology. You
Thank
can
you, Mr.
scan
Chair.
something
There
and
are
it converts it.
23 of us on this committee.
Yeah,
Almost everyone
plagiarize.
will be here today. I ask each of us to stay as close to the 5-minute mark as we can because we have votes at 11:30. So thank you all for your cooperation. Chair Powell, thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna
Job
vote for
growth is
TikTok
strong
ban.
as unemployment remains historically low. You might not know that from the opening statements. Many drivers of inflation, corporate greed, rising inequality, supply chain disruptions, Russia's bestiality, if you will, in Ukraine won't get better because of interest rate increases. Every indication is that this post-pandemic economy is different. Should we be worried, Mr. Chair, that the Fed is treating this economic period as it has in the past instead of reacting differently?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've been aware since the very beginning and have discussed this publicly on many occasions that there are some differences this time. We in particular
Starter SE.
have not seen the kind of supply side collapse that we saw at the very beginning of the inflation outbreak. Also, the outbreak of a war, which had significant
Let's
effects
go,
on
SE.
commodity prices a year ago. So all that is different. There are also, though, some similarities. There is a mismatch between supply and demand. You can see that in the goods sector still. You saw it in housing prices going up over 40% since before the pandemic, and you see it in the labor market where we have 1.9 job openings for every opening for every unemployed person. So we're well aware that this particular situation involves a mix of cycles of forces, not all of which our tools can affect. But there is a job here for us to do in better aligning demand with supply.
Okay, understanding you have limited tools to address inflation, and our conversations in the past show my
You get the
concern about
75, I'm gonna
continued
sell
rate
some of
increases
SE.
that may not actually address the root cause of inflation. They hurt workers, and many of us contend we can't follow the same old playbook. Next question. Last year, 3 banking
Taking some
regulators
profit in
issued
SE.
proposed updates on the Community
Holding the rest,
Reinvestment
break
Act
even.
to account for changes in our banking system. My question is, does the Fed remain
73.68.
committed to work with FDIC and OCC to finalize a CRA rule, and
This
when
one.
will that rule likely be finalized?
Yes, we do remain committed, and I believe we are in broad agreement with the other 2 agencies on the revisions to the rule. So now we're in the process of writing all that down, and that'll take some time. And then after that, of course, it will come to the Board of Governors for a vote, and that'll involve briefings and discussions. And I can't give you an exact date, but
As quickly as possible.
Yes, but it will be some months.
Okay, thank you. Banks weathered the shock of the COVID-19 shutdowns mostly because of the fiscal response provided by
SE
Congress.
pushing
We
team.
now see a spike in loan delinquencies, an increase in overall risk. Banks are again plowing billions, as many other corporate leaders always defended
76
by
next
people
target
on that
SE.
side of the aisle. Into stock buybacks, which makes me concerned that there's a downturn in the economy. Banks could end up with too little capital. That's why I'm worried about any potential rollbacks of safeguards or regulations. Can you assure me that the Fed will keep capital requirements strong and exercise more long-term forward thinking than corporate CEOs that seem to be focused on the short term?
I can assure you as to the first part that we'll keep capital requirements strong.
That's such a wasted question.
I didn't expect you to comment on give me an opinion about you're looking more forward than companies that look at the short-term benefits of stock buybacks. Mr. Chair, when you last testified, asking about the risk.
Cigar in the corner of the mouth while holding bourbon on the rocks in the other. That's what this Mr. Brown sounds like. Sounds like he's literally working on a huge stove and a glass of bourbon.
By your
Hello.
supervised institutions.
I feel bad
So
because
this
he
is
kind of
something
looks like
we've
it too.
been quite active in this area. And I'll
Mitch,
say that,
cold-blooded. Here we go.
we believe that innovation is very important over time to the
Mitch
economy.
is
We don't
out
want to
here.
stifle innovation.
I tried to
We
hold
don't
it
want
back. I
regulation
couldn't.
to
Yeah, Urban Farm has
stifle
done that
innovation
too.
in a way that just favors incumbents and that kind of thing. But like everyone else, we're watching what's been happening in the crypto space. And, what we see
Man,
is,
SE was a nice
quite a lot of
VWAP
turmoil. We
pullback
see
buy for
fraud.
me.
We see a lack of
Let's go.
transparency.
Come on.
We see run risk.
UNCY bounced here off the
things like
VWAP
that.
too, by the
So
way.
what we've been doing is making sure that the regulated financial institutions that we supervise and regulate are careful, are taking great care in the ways that they engage with the with the whole crypto space, and that they give us prior notice. And we've issued, along with the FDIC and the OCC, a number of issuances of notices to that effect.
Thank you. And I will close with this. I've long pushed for the Fed to prioritize workers and for the leaders of the Fed to reflect the diversity of our country. We've made progress, but our work is not done. We have a new opening. Understand, it's not your job to appoint the new Fed member. We have a number of upcoming vacancies.
Pinterest almost a 27 now, team. That's looking great for me. I'm looking for a pop above 27 towards 27.20s to take first profit.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Chairman.
Apple coming back,
Obviously,
SPY
Chairman,
coming back.
I brought
I'm going to look to add to CRM.
Tesla bounced the most of those so far. Amazon doing good as well.
The importance of having a strong capital markets as it relates to making sure that Americans have the ability to continue to grow their businesses and to solve their challenges. And frankly, I hope that we get there. Building on the same comment that Chairman had around capital standards is where I'm going to go with my thoughts today. When I think back on these last few years, it's hard not to recognize the
Pinterest above
extraordinary
27.
efforts our financial institutions of all sizes, frankly, undertook to administer a program like the PPP, all while weathering a shutdown of our global economy. I welcome your thoughts, but from my viewpoint, our banking system was resilient. Our financial institutions stepped up and delivered aid to support families and businesses every single day. That's why Vice Chair Barr's broad comments around holistic review of our capital trouble me so much.
Order out for
We should
SE,
be
a little bit
laser
more
focused
profit,
on our
75.90s.
and addressing the needs
Boom.
of everyday Americans.
Let's go,
trying to
SE.
forge a new future and helping
Money,
them
money,
open the
money,
doors to
money.
opportunity. As you and I both know, capital and its quality
Money.
must be
Look at
continually
that pretty
scrutinized.
chart.
But increased capital does not necessarily provide an
TDUP and VRAX both on the watch for late day pops here as they move through their VWAP. If they get volume expansion. Pro, I see you talking about VRAX, TDUP as well. These could both possibly pop later today. Keep them on radar.
Where everyday needs are more expensive, we should not
Could
be
add
pursuing
COSM to
actions
that
that
list too, I suppose.
harmful. Rather, we should be supporting the engine of our economy.
Tiniest amount left for
While I remain
SE.
greatly
Just going to hold
concerned
break
by the
even
Vice
on the
Chair's
rest.
comments,
Look to see if we can
I
get
am
back to
hopeful
high of
that
day.
you will ensure this review is appropriate, keeping the impacts on our banking system front and center. We must promote and further the growth of our economy and thereby our people. Anything less would be unacceptable. To that end, will you commit that any ongoing capital review by the Federal Reserve will follow the law
Boom,
and that
SE in
any
the 76s
follow-on
now.
regulatory proposals will be risk-based and tailored to an
Pins,
institution's
2707.
activity,
Snap,
size, and complexity,
SPY back to
and not
VWAP.
a one-size-fits-all.
Did I get CRM pullback fill?
Yes,
Yes.
I can easily commit to
84.91s.
that.
Let's
You know,
go.
we're
I
very
put it
strongly
out there at
committed to tailoring.
58s.
And that'll be, I can say
184.58.
that anything we do will reflect tailoring, which is a long-held principle for us and also now a requirement in the law.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. 2 weeks ago, I sent a letter with Chairman McHenry to Chair Gensler regarding the SEC's climate disclosure rule, urging him to rescind his proposal and reminding him that the SEC is a market regulator, not a climate forecaster. Much like Congress designed the SEC to protect investors, to maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and to facilitate capital formation, and not to advance
It's
progressive
bouncing
climate
the
change
market here
policies.
pretty strong.
Pull back to
Congress
VWAP.
designed the Federal Reserve to promote price stability and maximum employment.
Roberto, you've been on the bounce here all
To that
day. Good
end,
stuff on
I
that.
find worrying the Fed's announcement of recent actions to consider climate-related scenarios, coupled with remarks by the Vice Chair of
Stop for
Supervision
SE 77.
as attempts to incorporate broader ESG policies into the financial services system. Banks have and continue to account for weather-related risks in their risk management, but efforts that attempt to predict climate change far into the future fall outside the scope of their authority. Importantly, the level of speculation required in these models should highlight their arbitrary and capricious nature. At a time when our economy is suffering from historically high inflation, I expect our central bank to focus its time and resources on bringing inflation down, not on policy outside of its mandate. I noted in my opening statement a recent speech that you've given about the state of the Fed and how you should resist the temptation to broaden its scope and to address social issues. Do you agree that the Federal Reserve does not have the
Can
authority?
you imagine a
or
Comedy
statutory
Central
direction
roast of
to use
Jerome
its
Powell?
monetary policy
Oh,
or
He would, I
supervisory
don't know
tools
if he would
to
get the
weigh in
jokes. I don't know if he would, you
or
know,
other
like
climate policies?
sit through a real roasting.
As you know, there's a tightly focused
But that
role
would be
we do
something.
have that I believe that we have, but I would agree with your statement.
I like the purple chai
Mr. Chairman.
choice.
I have 20 seconds left. I'm going to defer.
I like the
to
purple
my
tie.
further questions
I like
about
Purple
this.
tie.
I
Right?
like Tim Scott's tie too.
Tim Scott's not too bad.
Here he is.
I gotta see who this
Senators
individual is that has such a raspy voice.
Oh, I'll put him on. I'll put him on.
Mr.
Mr.
Brown.
Brown. The
Mr.
chairman.
Brown, and you're going to see it. You're going to be like, oh, I get
It's
it.
always good to have you in front of our committee. As you know, both core
There's
and
Pinterest
headline
2017
inflation have
team.
remained
I'm going to take some
persistently
profits
elevated.
towards
And over the
2017,
past 12
just
months,
slightly
real
above here.
average
Boom.
hourly
Just took
earnings
some
fell by
profits on Pinterest. Let's
1.8%,
go, team. Let's
about
go.
4% since President
Nice
Biden
job,
took
Mitch.
office. To make ends meet as prices increase, more Americans are leaning on credit cards. At the end of 2022, credit card debt hit a record of $930.6 billion, an 18.5% spike from a year earlier. And an average credit card balance rose to $5,805.
SE almost to
Over the past
final
year, the Fed
profit
has acted
77.
aggressively to tame inflation, and yet we are still seeing price increases. As we've discussed this several
What a
times,
bounce in Tesla, guys.
recognize that
God.
it's been an ongoing discussion, but I believe that this further proves that we have long been feeling the effects of a policy-induced inflation resulting from decisions by the Biden administration, primarily cutting
For
off
snap, I like pullbacks
the-
1220.
the resources necessary to improve and increase domestic energy production. I continue to be concerned that if you attempt to use the tools that are available at this time for the Fed, then I believe that we're going to have a challenge of not being able to address specifically the challenges brought out when you have a policy is promoting higher prices with regard to energy, as opposed to what you're trying to do, which is to bring down.
Let's hit the
total
likes. Let's
overall
go.
cost.
Can we get 100
I just
at
wanted to
least?
ask,
Come
I
on,
guess,
We're
team.
not even at
and
100.
I think this is something that we've
I'm
heard
gonna have to
before.
start
but
holding
do you
the
believe
stream
that you
ransom.
currently
Come
have
on, I
the
hate doing
monetary
that.
policy tools to actually reduce inflation? And I just put it in this perspective. In January of 2021, the CPI was 1.4% when the Biden administration began. In January of 2022, and this is before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, CPI was at 7.5%, 7.5%. Today, March of 2022, CPI is 8.5%. Wouldn't it be fair to assess that a lot of the policy or the inflation that we've seen here may very well be due to policy decisions by this administration?
Of course, they needed
Senator,
to.
not for us to point fingers. Our job is to use our tools. You asked whether we have the tools
Exactly.
to get this job done.
That's
and
monetary
we do
policy,
over
not
time.
just-
Even
There are
his
some things that
demeanor,
we can't
Ryan,
affect,
is
but
like
over time
Patrick.
we
Like
can
that
achieve
statement
2%
of it's not our
inflation,
job to
and we
point
will.
fingers.
In other words,
It's your job to do X,
you've
Y,
got
Z,
a
so
limited
it's
number of
something
tools
Patrick would
available
say.
to you.
I can barely hear you.
And
Zunaid.
the limited number of
Oh, never
tools
mind,
that
never mind,
you
never mind.
have are designed to impact simply the reduction in prices and so forth. And yet, if there are competing interests out there that are pushing prices higher, you don't have the wherewithal to decide one tool versus another based on whether it's policy induced or whether it is a matter of a shortage in supplies from outside or whether it's war related.
That's right. Our tools essentially work on demand, moderating demand, and
So-
so that's what we can do.
So if there were policies in place that actually help to reduce inflation, in other words, and by that, I'm just going to look at energy
Guys, we're
alone,
talking
just as an
to
example.
the head of monetary
Policies that were
policy
in place
about
that were
fiscal
actually
policy.
allowing
That's what we're
energy
doing here.
prices to come down in the United States, then you would have less of a need to use the very blunt tools that you do have right now with
Market
regard
might
to
be
increasing rate
reversing
increases.
here.
Is that a
It's
fair
just
statement,
going
sir?
off a little bit. I see SQ.
In a sense, it is, but I would just say on energy,
I think
I'm
it's
not trying to
just
get you to a
chop.
policy
I think it's just a
discussion
little bit of
with
chop action.
what the president's doing on his energy policy. I just want to make it clear that you have to respond to what's in front of you, and it doesn't matter where the inflation is coming from or what's driving it up.
Yes, Mr.
You're
Rounds.
simply trying to
I
bring it
took
back down to that 2% number
Economy
with the only tools that
Economy
you really have.
101. Thank you.
yes, but I will say on energy, energy has tended over time to fluctuate up and down, and it's not mainly affected by our tools. So the things we look at are really things that are tightly linked to demand in the U.S. economy. Those we can affect.
And I think just the fact that you've been increasing interest rates, and yet inflation continues to ride up, would suggest, just as you've just indicated, that when you have high energy prices, it's tough to impact that part of it with the monetary policy that you've got available to you.
So we focus on everything, but we also focus on core in particular, which doesn't include energy prices. And what's happened is core inflation has come down, but nowhere near as fast
really hold
as we
down
might have
below
hoped, and it has a
towards
long way to go.
183.
Thank you. One last question. Last June,
below that.
Vice Chairman of
CRM.
Supervision Michael Barr testified before this committee that he would defend the use of the aggregation method as an alternative approach to the insurance capital standards, the ICS, proposed by the IAIS. As the final compatibility criteria set to come out later this year, can you confirm that you share Vice Chair Barr's views on this AM?
I will confirm that, but I'll have to get back to you on the status of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Round. Senator Menendez of New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to take this moment to remind my colleagues that there are more than 62 million Latinos that call the United States home.
Latinos!
We are the largest minority group in the country. We account for nearly 20% of the United States population. We contribute almost $3 trillion in
face
GDP.
to this.
Yet Latinos have no representation in the Federal Reserve's leadership. In the 109-year history of the Federal Reserve, there has never been a single member of the Board of Governors or regional bank president who has the lived experience of being Latino in the United States. And in practice, that means that the voices of nearly 1/5 of our country's people are repeatedly drowned out when the Fed is making critical decisions on economic policy. Decisions that affect whether a Latino family can afford their first home, find a job that pays a living wage, send their children to college, save for a comfortable retirement, or get a loan.
Man, this SE trade.
Right now, the Biden administration has a clear opportunity
I'm just trying to get it back to 77.
make history with its next nomination to the Board of Governors. It has identified a number of highly qualified Latino candidates who are dedicated their careers.
I could get down on that. Bring Sandman in. Bring Mariano Rivera to the Fed post. I'm in with that.
The administration
close it out.
Rightly nominated and advocated for a number of diverse candidates with similar qualifications, both at the Fed and elsewhere. But despite having 5 opportunities over the past 2 years to nominate a qualified Latino economist to serve at the Federal Reserve, this administration has repeatedly chosen not to. Representation, or lack thereof, does not happen by accident. It is a choice. And I hope the administration makes the right choice with this nomination.
I haven't heard this guy say anything about the economy yet.
They have 5 minutes. They take 3 minutes on their agenda and 2 minutes on a question.
Unbelievable.
Yes, I would.
And you know why they do this, right? Because they know the majority of the public is listening.
Yep.
So
Republican
has
House
nothing to do with the actual rate decisions.
On the debt for the first time in history of this country, jeopardizing our credit and the world economy.
Live reaction
I'm getting
here.
A sense of deja vu because once again, Republicans are recklessly demanding draconian spending cuts.
I like how someone in their other chat and in that stream, they're like, yeah, just keep talking. I hit 3 targets already. Keep talking.
For spending that Congress, including most of them, have already voted to authorize.
All right, y'all. I got to get back to some Benzinga work. This was fun. Hopefully,
time to do that.
Hopefully, y'all made some money, but see you guys tomorrow.
Take care, Zunaid. We'll be back.
Hey, we bounce back tomorrow, sir.
About the catastrophic damage, a debt
grateful to God. Good point here. UNCY busted through that 180. Remember, we did get the volume expansion on that move here. Thank you, Mitch. So what we're looking at here is this 180 line that we talked about. Took 2 attempts to actually get through it. Is the chart loaded for you, Mitch? Or yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you're good, my friend.
Took 2 attempts to actually get through this here, but did it on the stick where we had the increased volume. So good stuff here on UNCY. This has been strong all day. It's been one of our better trades in here.
And if we fail to do so,
all right, bringing Powell back in.
The consequences are hard.
I haven't heard any fireworks yet,
but they could be extraordinarily adverse and could do longstanding harm.
I'm waiting for the word
I
disinflation.
think that's a mild statement of what would happen. I understand. I didn't ask you to engage in the congressional executive branch roles. I asked you about the abstract question of what happens if you have a debt default. Isn't even this constant fight putting into question the possibility that the United States will not honor its full faith and credit have consequences within the economy?
In principle, it could. I think markets tend
People really
and
talk about the debt
observers tend to
deficit like
watch
it's gonna
this and
actually
tend to think that
happen.
it will work out, and it has in the past worked out. So it needs to work out this time too.
Now, seeing your testimony before the committee, is it fair to say that you'll do whatever is necessary to tame inflation?
Of course.
We serve a dual mandate, and we will do what we can, everything we can to restore price
And-
stability while also serving maximum employment.
And primarily that means additional rate increases,
SQQQ,
would it not?
nice
Is
little
one of the
move here
tools we
off
have.
this bounce. Boy, I'll
We
tell
have
you
the
what,
balance sheet, the
you
shrinkage
might,
of the balance sheet will continue to,
ETFs
but it's principally
might be
rate
some of the
hikes.
better
So the
moves
question
for
is,
the rest
when
of the day
does
here.
that part of doing
Yeah,
anything
range bound is
necessary
what
to
I'm
tame
seeing, though.
employment, to tame
Like
inflation,
we just went up
come
to
into
403,
conflict with
bouncing
your other
again off of
mandate
401
of maximum
until we
employment?
close below
Not now,
15-minute
when we have the
SPY
lowest
401.
unemployment in
I'm still
54 years,
expecting chop.
and where we have
Yeah,
a
Bobo.
labor market that is extremely tight, extremely. So, but
Laura
that
asking here,
time could
Brian,
come,
do you
but
still
it
think
really isn't
VREX
now.
will go to
We're very
1.7?
far
I
from
don't have a price target. I don't
price stability
think
mandate in
that
any
any stock is really going to
economy in
go
the past.
somewhere. I guess maybe there are a
Most
couple I have a line on, but I don't have that on
maximum
VREX.
employment.
What
Thank
I'm
you.
waiting for, Laura, is I'm waiting to react to what we see here. The fact that VREX is holding this sideways motion here sets up really good for later in the day here. If we get that volume to expand, we're really not far away from the VWAP. So I can see a scenario where we get a volume pop here that takes VREX through the VWAP. That's not easy to say. And maybe goes higher here. I mean, 170 is possible. 174 is that pre-market high, so maybe we will see that if we have. I don't know if it's going to do chart. I'm just watching the volume here to tell if that's going to happen.
Well, it would depend on whether that's funded by tax increases.
Interesting
or
chart
not.
for me is Snap.
So, if there's a spending that's
Show
not
you guys
accompanied
that
by
a little
taxes,
bit
would have a
bigger here.
net.
You
at
see
the
how it's
margin
just building up
stimulative
off
effect.
the VWAP. Still looks very bullish
And
for
when
me.
Congress borrows,
I'm not in this one, but just calling it out for
to
you
spend
guys.
even more.
I'm still in Pinterest
That
though with the
stimulates
tiniest
the
size.
economy even more.
But
does
what
it
did I
not?
do? I break
At the
even
margin,
on the
yeah.
rest.
Okay. If Congress reduced the rate of growth in its spending and reduced the rate of growth in its debt accumulation, it would make your job easier in reducing inflation, would it not?
Yes.
I don't think fiscal policy right now is a big factor driving inflation at this moment. But
he
it's
actually
absolutely
said it.
essential that we do slow the pace of growth, particularly for the areas of the budget.
All right,
that
let's
are
try to
growing.
unpack this then. I'm not trying to trick you. You're
Hey,
raising
you
interest
were.
rates. You're raising interest rates to slow the economy, are you not?
And
Yes, to cool the economy.
UNCY. Huge move
And
from
SPY,
one
right
way
back.
you measure your success.
Look at
other
the SPY,
than
man. Look at this. So
Fluctuation
this is what I
in gross
called out,
domestic
like the
product
bottoming
is the
action.
unemployment
Look
rate.
how clean it is on the 15.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Clean as
Look
day.
at that.
Okay. So in effect, I'm not being
So
critical.
the chop action,
When
right?
you're slowing the economy, you're trying to put people out of work. That's your job, is it not?
Not really. We're trying to restore price stability.
No, you're trying to raise
not
the
wages,
you're trying to
or
raise the unemployment rate.
There are a lot,
And
so there are a lot of.
that mean I know you don't like the phrase, so let me strike it. You're trying to raise the unemployment rate, are you not?
No, we're trying to kill
No,
demand.
we're not trying to raise it. We're trying to realign supply and demand, which could happen through a bunch of channels. Like, for example,
It's just an
just
after
job
effect.
openings.
All right,
Job
let
openings
me
could.
put it another way, okay? The Economist did a wonderful study.
What
They looked
economist?
at 10 disinflationary periods in America going all the way back to the 1950s. Disinflation is what you're trying to do. It's a
Uh-oh, he's using the
slowing
I was
word.
gonna
in
say, you're
the
getting it
rate
here.
of
There you
inflation.
go. Watch the
Am I
watch
right?
the market.
Yes.
Watch the algos.
In other words, prices don't go down. They just don't go up as fast.
Deflation is when
Stay
prices
focused.
actually
Any
go
update on your
down.
PGA
You're
tour
trying
in
to achieve
Arizona fixing the
disinflation,
trip?
are you
Dude, I
not?
just got back from that.
Okay. Based
That
on
was in
history, in the
February.
10 times
I'm back. It was great.
that we got inflation down,
Might go next year.
disinflation since the 1950s, in order to reduce inflation by 2%, unemployment had to go up 3.6%. Now that's history, is it not?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yes, the standard has been that there have been recessions and
Told you that was starting
downturns
to get
when the
important
Fed has
here.
tried to reduce inflation.
Now, right now, the current inflation
oh,
rate
I told you, this is-
6.4%, and the current
This is
unemployment rate
get after
3.4%.
pal time.
Now, if
Yeah.
history is
Once
right,
we
I'm
get
not
out of
asking
this,
you
by
to-
the way, as far as the market goes, once we
Can't
get out
blame
of the get after
but if
pal
history
time,
is right,
things might
unless you get some
improve
help
here for the market. Some of these
in
stocks
order
might
to
go
get
up.
inflation
So
down
it's just the market in general. I wouldn't be surprised if we
to,
had
let's
that.
say, 4.4%.
But right now, when you're in the back and forth, probably not the time to actually trade it.
That's what the record would say.
Okay. And to get inflation down to 2.2% based on history, an immutable fact, unemployment would have to go to 10.6%.
Uh-oh.
Would it not?
No, I wouldn't.
That's what the record shows. That's what the history shows.
Yeah.
Well, history
I don't
doesn't.
think that kind of a number is at all in
I
play
mean,
here.
I know you're reluctant to admit it, and you don't want to get in the middle of a policy dispute. But I think it's undeniable. It's undeniable that the only way we're going to get this sticky inflation down is to attack it on the monetary side, which you're doing, and on the fiscal side, which means Congress has got to reduce the rate of growth of spending and reduce the rate of growth of debt accumulation. Now, I get that you don't want to get in the middle of that fight, but the more we help on the fiscal side, the fewer people you're going to have to put out of work. Isn't that a fact?
Please answer.
Could work out that way.
Sir?
It could work out that way.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Reed of Rhode Island is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, look at Powell. He's starting to feel it. He's starting to feel the grill. He's
We
going through his
saw in the
remarks.
wake of COVID,
He's like, let me stick to my
globalized
remarks.
supply
Let me
chain
not get too
disrupted
wild here.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get.
and we're in the process
He doesn't
of
want to
some
get
respect-
too.
He's getting grilled.
involved
Let's
in
just
it.
be
I don't
honest.
blame
Like
him.
every
emphasis
witness,
on
once you get
sourcing
grilled,
in
you
the
eventually
United
start
States.
feeling the pressure. He's feeling it
To
now.
what extent did that disruptive supply chain contribute to inflation, and to what extent will
SPY
the
hitting
new,
480s.
envisioned
I
new
like the
supply chain that is
450s.
located
That reversal
United
back to
States and
401.
other
If you
friendly
see a close of
countries,
15 minutes
affect
below
inflation?
400,
The
that's
initial outbreak
definitely
of inflation was
concern
all
for the
about,
pullback. We'll see what happens here. Apple heading
spending
towards
on
the
goods
lows.
where people couldn't spend on services. So goods spending went way up, and the global supply chain, many goods are imported. The global supply chain just collapsed, and that was the source of the original inflation. It has now spread over the last 2 years to housing and
We'll see
also
what's
to
moving
the rest
here.
of the service sector. So to your question, we are seeing goods prices, goods inflation has been coming down
Airbnb staying
for
into
some
the
time now.
green.
It's still too high, but
Nice
it's
looking
coming
chart
down.
there.
Housing services.
Going through some of the good charts.
SQQQ been a monster. I think there might be two more of these too.
Signed, and what that tells you is
Lulu.
that in the next 6 to 12 months, we will see that come down. But this big service sector, that's everything else, which is financial services, medical services, travel and leisure, all of those things.
Costco pullback.
That's really where that's the source of the inflation we have now, which had nothing to do with the supply, or not much to do with the supply chains. That's where the challenge is now.
And is there anything that you can do that would target that service area
Honeywell
without affecting the other areas?
There's not really. Our monetary policy tools are famously powerful but blunt.
A different topic, and that is, as you probably aware, the Fifth Circuit delivered a ruling in the Community Financial Services Association
All right,
versus CFPB.
Mitch, I'm going to get rolling here. I got to get
CFPB
everything back
funding
together
mechanism
here
is
after my break. Have a good one. We will be back
Just
tomorrow.
like the
Take
Board of
care,
Governors,
chat. Good
the
stuff
CFPB is
here
Bureau of the
today.
Federal Reserve.
Keep an eye
Both the
on
Board of Governors
some of those
and
stocks for
CFPB
later,
rely
VRAX
on the
and
same source of
TDUP.
funds to
Those
draw on
could
those
end up,
funds in
actually,
identical
TDUP might
ways.
be starting a little
If
early here.
Board
It's starting right
Governance
now.
funding structure we
So
found
good stuff here
unconstitutional, what
today,
would the
folks.
implications
Let's
be
keep
for
Let's keep it
country
up. We
monetary
got several more days.
Well,
in the week.
it would be
Take
very
care. I will see you
significant, but
tomorrow.
I have to say, we have
All right,
significant
team.
responsibilities.
Ryan's
but I
getting
would,
out of here. I'm going
be
to try to
reluctant
stick
comment on
around,
a
but
case that's before
only
the
if
Supreme
we
Court.
start getting this likes
but
to the
it is,
upside, man. I need to see
It
these
is
likes
certainly
hit
something that
a
you've
certain
had
goal.
people
Let's see what we
examine
got right now.
possible ramifications.
We
Yes,
got
and the
159.
central banks
Let's
tend to
get it
be
to 200
self-funding
there,
because of the
team.
way that-
Smash
the
it
way
up
they
if you guys
work,
want to
and
keep
that's a
me
key
on
factor
here.
of our
If
independence.
not, I'll bounce and
Uh,
give you guys over to Benzinga Live.
We've going back and forth on the impact of rate hikes on workers, and you've indicated previously that wages
We're
have
at
not been
169,
spiraling upwards
team. We need
necessarily,
about 30
and
more.
that inflation expectations are currently stable. But the impact on increased interest rates are usually felt
Best
more
trade of the
by
day,
low to
definitely this
moderate income
SE
people.
trade. Got it
Uh,
at
is there any way you can work
73.68,
yourself
team.
out of
That's
that dilemma?
right here close to the VWAP. Right
So
before
where we
this
are
big
right now,
candle,
of course, is
pull
very
back
low
trend
unemployment.
line.
Wages have been
That
moderating.
popped right up
And
there.
they've been doing
Bigger
so
win, biggest win
without,
of the day for sure.
softening in the labor market, without rising unemployment, really. And that's a good
Snap
thing.
still holding the
So,
chart. I like that snap
we
chart.
really don't know. The current situation is a combination of more typical supply and demand issues, but also just things that we haven't seen before, like the war in Ukraine, like the supply chains that you mentioned.
Like the
So,
recovery of
we have
15
many
minutes
unusual
towards
factors, and
401.
I
Just
don't think
keeping an
anybody
eye
knows
on
with
that.
confidence
For the
how
SPY,
this
we're
is
going to
gonna
get a
play out.
new hourly
Thank you
candle
very much,
in just
Mr. Trump.
about
Thank you.
3 minutes.
Thanks, Senator Reed. Senator Brett, Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, it's great to have you here today. Over the past 2 years, we've seen the highest inflation of my lifetime, driving up costs for American families across the board. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the annual inflation rate in 2021 was 7%, and in 2022, it was 6.5%. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the cost of food went up 10% in 2022. And the real effects of that is moms and dads across this nation that are working to put food on the table for their kids, for their babies, had a harder time doing that. This has devastated hardworking Americans, causing a kitchen table crisis in every corner of our country, as the price of food, energy, and housing have all skyrocketed. In response, the Federal Reserve has raised the Federal Reserve Fund rate more than 4 percentage points. Being far from transient, inflation has remained persistent.
All right,
high,
let's check out where we're
and
at
well
on that
above
light
the Fed's
game.
long run
187,
remaining
team.
under
13
2%.
more to keep me on for a little bit
In
longer.
the coming
If not, I'm
year,
just going to bring you
what
guys over
factors and
to that
indicators are
stream.
you paying
I want to keep
attention
trading,
to
but I
as
need you guys to smash the
and
like.
the Federal Open Market
Let
Committee
Benzinga know. You
decide
guys
on
want me
whether
to
to increase
keep going.
rates?
So
I'm feeling it today. Let's go.
First, we're going to be looking at inflation in the three sectors that I mentioned: the goods sector, the housing sector,
I still haven't
and
taken
the
it
broader
yet, though.
service sector. And we need
Looks interesting there.
the inflation that's already underway in the goods sector.
CRM, we'll see about that swing. I might get cut out through the 183.40s.
In the housing sector, we just need the time to pass so that reported inflation comes down, and it's effectively in the pipeline as long as new leases are being signed at relatively small increases. So we'll be watching very, very carefully, though, at the larger service sector, which is 56% of consumer spending, and more than that of what's currently inflation. So that's one thing we'll be watching that very carefully. Also, we raised rates very quickly last year, and we know that monetary policy, tightening policy, has delayed effects. It takes a while for the full effects to be seen in economic activity and inflation. So we're watching carefully to see those effects coming into play.
Out of that
so
CRM,
we're aware that we haven't seen the full effects yet, and we're taking that into account as we think about rate hikes.
So when you're looking at this, obviously not to get into a policy discussion, but if there were an increase of energy production in this country, do you feel like that would help drive down inflation?
One more,
Well,
team.
I think
199.
over time,
Oh,
more
we
energy
lost
would mean lower energy prices. But we were very focused on
Boom!
what we call core
200!
inflation, because that is what is driven by really by demand, and our tools are really aimed at demand.
Appreciate
Right,
you guys.
understood, but I feel like the cost of energy is not just what you pay at the pump. It ends up affecting every good across this great nation.
All right, so now we can
Additionally,
have
I'd like
some
to ask you
fun.
about labor participation. So when you look at the unemployment rate, and we've heard my colleagues discuss people having to be displaced in order for us to maybe get to the inflation rate that we would like as a nation, I'd like to focus on the labor participation rate. So right now it's 62.4%. If there were an increase in people coming back into the workforce, would that be a positive factor with regards to driving us down to the 2% rate that you would want to achieve?
No, that wouldn't be a
I
positive.
think that it
factor.
would. I mean, remember those people coming into jobs,
Yes.
that would be great because the economy clearly wants more people than are currently working. Of course, those people would then spend more, so it wouldn't be a zero-sum game, but it would be great for the country and great for them if they were to come into the labor force.
Amen. I believe that
Amen.
increasing in capital requirements on financial institutions would have a chilling effect on the economy
Hey, at least she's getting
and
through her thing
the
and asking
availability of financial
questions.
services. And last week, I joined many of my colleagues in sending you a letter that expressed concerns that if the Federal Reserve decides to conduct a quote holistic review of capital standards, as we heard Senator Scott talk about
Out
earlier.
of Pinterest.
So is the Federal
stopped
Reserve
out, break even
concerned
on
that the
rest,
impact
got
to the
nice profits
economy
on the
of
first pop.
increasing capital requirements on financial institutions at a time when inflation remains persistently high would cause an issue?
So I think it's always a balance. We know that higher capital
SPY
makes
going through the
banks safer
400
and
closing
sounder.
below the
We
401. We
also
could
know
see
that
some
you're,
more downside
you
coming in
will at the
here.
margin,
I'll look to see if we get the
provide
bounce,
less
but looks
credit
like
the
we're
more
leaking
capital
here.
You
Be
have
careful
to
out there.
but I think it's never exactly clear that you're at perfect equilibrium, and it's a fair question, I think, to look at that.
And I know out of respect for the chairman and trying to stay in my time, I will just end by saying I heard what you said. Obviously, as you have said, the Federal Reserve is not and will not be a climate policymaker. I just want to thank you for your public statement on that. I agree with you that there's a difference between policymakers and financial regulators, and certainly look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Senator Warner from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, it's good to see you again. Let me start by saying, depending on who's asking questions, we're either pounding you for how quickly we're going to drive that inflation back to 2%, or pounding you on making sure that we don't push the economy into a recession.
Starting to turn around. I'm going to take a little bit of snap here. You guys got me to the light goals. I'm willing to take a little bit more of a trade here.
But I actually think you've done a pretty good job
on the pullback towards 1220s.
Ratcheting
up
up rates
hill and then push towards 1240.
Starting to tail off a little bit. I think we all were concerned by the January numbers where it popped up a little bit more. I wish, Mr. Chairman, we're actually having this hearing 2 weeks from now, because we're going to have a lot more data later in this week and next week.
Snap already moving.
Net. We've still got ways to go, and the January numbers were concerning, but I do think your tailored approach, we can all second guess, but I think it has been the right approach. And I want to commend you on that. I want to get two questions in. One of the areas that
you got to be careful, Nathan, if you're blowing up on days like this.
A Bloomberg story here showing, we're going to hit a $6 trillion wall this year on refinancing. Where I'm particularly concerned is the issue around commercial real estate.
SPY starting to come back. I like this outlook
as we recover
here,
from
so
COVID.
take a shot here.
A lot of things are getting back to normal, but clearly the transformation
back to 26. Can I get 25?
Where people work is going through a fundamental transition, and
I don't think I'm going to get to 25. So
I
I'm
hope
going to take a
people
shot right here.
do return more to the
starter
office.
And Snap.
Lots of folks
Look for a little bit of a
working
pullback for the ad.
working elsewhere. That's going to
Starter
fundamentally
on.
change the real estate market on the
12.27.
commercial side, and I do believe we're going to hit potentially a cliff here of a totally unexpected
go
problem
back
in
through
terms
27.
of commercial real estate. How are you looking
That's
at
this
that issue
right-hand
and
chart.
recognizing there's lots of bumps coming out of COVID? This one seems to be more unique in nature, and how are you thinking about that issue?
So the first one on commercial debt, business debt generally, it's kind of been moving sideways as a percent of GDP. So you don't see a big spike going on or anything like that. However, of course, there are pockets of concern, and particularly you pointed to the refinancing spike that has to happen, and I've seen those come and go before. Generally, markets can absorb them, maybe at a much higher rate this time, but it's something that we were well aware of and watching carefully. In terms of CRE, I would agree with you. The occupancy of office space in many major cities is just remarkably low. And you wonder how that can be. As over time, some of that's going to be made into condominiums and things like that, since we don't seem to have quite enough housing in some places. But the question is, what's the financial stability risk? It's not great for the largest institutions. Don't tend to have a lot of direct exposure to that. Some smaller banks actually do. Medium and small size banks do. We carefully monitor it. We agree that that's an area that requires a lot of monitoring.
Snap, 1 cent away from my original
I'd say we're
entry.
on the case.
Looking for it to start pushing now.
Well,
let's see if we can get the push.
Morphed me into my last question. Something we've talked about, and a lot of my colleagues have talked about with the large institutions. I mean, I do think even
Also
some
like
of the biggest
Soxtel.
critics of Dodd-Frank, I think, would acknowledge our banking system is a heck of a lot stronger and was able to withstand COVID in a very healthy way. But what we've also seen evolve is a vast amount of financial institutions move beyond the regulatory perimeter. You know, the fact that we now have way over half of the mortgage origination coming from non-financing institutions, because a lot of the large entities, hedge funds, other funds that may be doing some of this commercial
Wait
debt
to see if we can recover
or some of the
401
CRE,
before Soxel, but it looks
debt.
interesting for me. In the snap,
I'd like you to talk generally in the last 40 seconds or so of, you know, how you think about this regulatory perimeter. I'm a big believer, and I know some of my colleagues are, that, you know, that we ought to look less at charter and look at same risk, same regulation, maybe as a guiding principle. And you know, I know Senator Warren's been working on some work. I've been working on some work around crypto around that area. But there's a vast amount of activity that's taking place outside the regulatory perimeter. How should we be thinking about that, and how do we make sure that doesn't create the kind of crisis sneak up that happened in 2008 on the non-regulated side of the house?
I think you articulated the principle very well. It's same activity, same regulation. And
401
that
recovery
covers
there for
crypto
SPY.
and all kinds of other
Looking at
activities.
a 5-minute
People are
candle
going to
can close
assume
there.
when
We
they
got about
deal
3
with
minutes
something that
left on
looks
this
like a money
candle, but
market fund, that
Soxel
it has
already recovering.
the same
So if we want
regulations
to take
as
the
money market
Soxel
fund or a
trade, it's
bank
going to be
deposit.
probably right
And
here.
so stable coins need some attention in that respect. I just think that's the basic principle. And you're right. So much of intermediation has moved away from the regulated banks really for a long period of time. We got to keep an eye on that.
Thank you, Chair Powell. We can keep looking at it. I hope it's
Thank you, Senator Vance. I'm sorry, Senator Haggerty of Tennessee.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Pinterest back above
Thank you
27.
very much, Ranking Member Scott, for holding this hearing. Chairman, it's great to see you again here. I appreciate your presence.
SPY still
and
battling that
I
401
appreciate the
team.
opportunity to talk with you about an item that I'm
Now we're starting to come
particularly
back
concerned about,
below it.
and that's the holistic review that
About
Senator
2
Britt just
minutes
brought up.
and
that,
15 seconds left.
Vice Chair Bauer is conducting right now. It's generating a sense that higher capital requirements are on the horizon for us. And as I think about that in the context of what we've weathered, you think about the situation.
What do you guys think about the picture-in-picture
in
view?
2020, it was an acute, real-life stress test, if you will. And I think that our financial system navigated that.
Smash it up, team.
In the past, Chair Powell, you
got about
told
12
this
minutes till we get to
committee
Benzinga
that our financial
live.
system has proven resilient through 2020, and that the capital levels at that point in time, and I would note that those capital levels are at multi-decade highs, are in aggregate adequate. And I just wanted to follow up on those prior statements and see if you still feel that way.
So I guess I would say it to you this way. We,
Nice
in our
first
system,
pop here in
we have
Snap.
a vice chair
Let's see
for
if we can get to
supervision who has
1240s,
statutory
then
responsibilities.
1250s,
And
then
when a new
1260s. I'll
vice chair
take
for
some
supervision
profit.
comes in, generally
Looking for a little bit of a bigger move there.
That's what the former one.
SPY still hasn't closed the
Vice Chair
5 minute
Quarles did, and that's,
above the 401.
Dan
It's getting
Chirillo
to the
kind of had
last
job
minute though
on
of that
an
5
informal
minute
basis,
candle.
and that's what he did. So it's only natural that someone would come in and take a fresh look at it. And I think that's part of the process. The role of that person is to make recommendations on regulation and supervision to the full board. The role of the board is to consider those when made. And this, to me, this just comes under that heading.
Well, as the review is underway, and I appreciate that context, one aspect of it seems to us as an apparent willingness to undo the tailoring requirements that were enacted as part of S2155. And I understand that nothing has been finalized regarding the regulations. It's a concerning prospect if that's the case. The Fed's general counsel just yesterday alluded to undoing 2155 by, quote, pushing down the Basel requirements on banks that were intentionally given relief in that bill. So I want to be perfectly clear that the banking regulators themselves can't just simply ignore or selectively enforce the laws. And again, I realize that the details of the study haven't been finalized and made public, but if the proposal put forth by Vice Chair Barr is either unduly aggressive or appears to contradict the spirit of S
BLPH, the Crow
2155,
said on the
will
radar.
you vote for it?
I can't answer that in the abstract, of
Ooh,
course, but
SE
I would say
back to
we're, as an
77 here,
institution, very
team.
strongly
I took the
committed
profit
to
there. I saw it
tailoring.
hit.
And
Boom.
anything we do is going to
SE
reflect
full out on that one.
tailoring
That was
of
a nice
institutions according to
winner,
their risk.
man. Look at this
I mean,
move.
that's a principle that we'll
Off the
stick with.
VWAP,
I
back
think
up to
it's quite important,
77.
again, given the legislative intent here and
Killer trade.
the concerns that we maintain that in the face of what
Snap
General
back to
Counsel said just
1230s.
yesterday. I appreciate your
Pinterest back to
perspective in terms of keeping that in
2017.
place.
Let's go, Snap.
I'd like to come with my next
It's a
Chairman.
15-minute
my
chart.
Next question, Chairman Powell, with
See it on the
starting the
5
question
minute.
by underscoring the
You go
importance
right
of
to
the
the
independence
1240
of the Fed's monetary
resistance.
policy.
Looking for that push.
Right now, the
through to
economic picture is
1250s.
about as uncertain as I can remember. We've had large companies in the private sector who are in the midst of planning layoffs and forecasting serious economic weakness in the quarters to come. Yet, on the other hand, the current economic data seems to be robust. Inflation showed some
All right,
signs
that
of
stock
softening in
sell
the
trade
past several
now.
releases. So I just
5 minute
hope, Chair Powell, that you could
close
briefly tell us how
slightly
you
below the
synthesize
401,
these
but we just
seemingly
recovered it.
contradictory data.
So looking to see if
So,
we can get a little push back here to 401.50.
Just quickly, at the end of last year, we saw a couple of very promising, modest inflationary readings in November and December. But earlier this year, some of that improvement was revised away. In addition, we got a very strong reading on inflation in January, also a very strong jobs reading, also very strong retail sales. And so, as I pointed out in my testimony, we're looking at a reversal, really, of what we thought we were seeing to some
1240s on
extent,
Snap.
a partial reversal. It's still true. It's still the case that we're seeing progress on inflation. We're seeing goods inflation has come down significantly. There's improvement in housing inflation in the pipeline. There's not a lot of improvement yet to be seen in the largest sector, which is non-housing services. So core inflation is running at 4.7% on a 12-month basis. I think nothing about the data suggests to me that we've tightened too much. Indeed, it suggests that we still have work to do.
In that context, thinking about where the tightening goes and when it might, where and when it might happen, where do you see the terminal Fed funds rate landing in this cycle?
So we last wrote down our
this
our
could be new stuff here.
individual assessments of that in December, and I think the median range was basically people were clustered between 5 and 5.5. We're going to write down those again as part of them. We do it 4 times a year. We'll do it around the March meeting, which is on the 21st and 22nd of March. And as I indicated in my testimony, I think that the data we've seen so far, and we still have other data to see, we still have significant data to see before the meeting, suggests that the ultimate rate that we write down may well be higher than what we wrote down in December.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll find out. How does the markets react to that? Trying to recover that 401
Thank you, Mr.
here.
Chairman. So the Fed has raised interest rates 8 times over the last year in what has been the most extreme rate hike cycle in 40 years. The Fed's goal is to slow inflation, and your tool, raising interest rates, is designed to slow the economy and throw people out of work. So far, you haven't tipped the economy into recession, but you haven't brought inflation entirely under control either. And maybe the reason for that is that other things are also keeping prices high, things you can't fix with high interest rates, things like price gouging and supply chain kinks and a war in Ukraine. But you are determined to continue to raise interest rates, so I want to take a look at where you're headed. In December, the Fed released its projections on the state of the economy under your monetary policy plan. According to the Fed's own report, if you continue raising interest rates as you plan, unemployment will be 4.6% by the end of the year, more than a full point higher than it is today.
Oh, she's saying
Chair
I'm a
Powell,
better.
if you hit your projections, do you know how many people who are currently working, going about their lives, will lose their jobs?
I don't have that number in front of me. I will say it's not an
just a math
intended
problem.
consequence. It's
Well,
not.
but it is, and it's in your report, and that would be about 2 million people who would lose their jobs. People who are working right now,
Yellen's
making
hitting
their
the
mortgages.
markets, man.
So, Chair Powell, if you could speak directly to the
She
2
might stop me
million
out of my trade here.
hardworking people who have decent jobs today, who you're planning to get fired over the next year, What would you say to them? How would you explain your view that they need to lose their jobs?
I would explain to people more broadly that inflation is extremely high and it's hurting the working people of this country badly. All of them, not just 2 million of them, but all of them are suffering under high inflation, and we are taking the only measures we have to bring inflation
The
down.
market's
And
just holding
Putting
on
2
by a
million
thread
people
right
out of
now.
work is just part of the cost, and they just have to bear it.
Well,
Yes,
will
that's the
will
truth.
working people be better off if we just walk away from our jobs and inflation
Well,
remains 5,
let me-
6%?
I agree with you.
Let me
Jerome.
ask you about what happens if you do this. Since the end of World War II, there have been 12 times in which the unemployment rate has increased by 1 percentage point within 1 year, exactly what you're aiming to do right now. How many of those times
Market's trying
did
to
the U.S.
recover it. We'll see if it
economy
does.
avoid falling into a recession?
You know, it's not as black and white as
He's
very,
clearly
Just
very
looking at the
infrequent.
numbers, it actually
Yeah, no,
is
no.
pretty black
Alan
and white.
Blinder's written a book on this, and
There have been 12 times that we've seen a 1-point increase in the unemployment rate
Mhm.
in a year. That's exactly what your Fed report has put out. As
So Yellen's trying to tell him you're going to cause a hard landing. If you do that, you cause a hard landing.
fail to fall into a recession
So
after doing
recession.
that out of 12 times.
I think the number is 0.
I think the number is 0. That's exactly right. So then the question becomes, we've got 2 million people out of work. Can you stop it at 2 million people? History suggests that the Fed has a terrible track record of containing modest increases in
It's
the
your history
unemployment
too,
rate.
Yellen.
Once the economy starts shedding jobs, it's kind of like a runaway train. It is really hard to stop. In fact,
Oh, it's
in
gonna be warm.
11 out of the 12 times that the unemployment rate increased by a full percentage
Thank you,
point
guys.
within 1 year,
See, the chat's
unemployment
at
went
least paying
on
attention.
to rise another full percentage point on top of that. If that's what happens this
Thanks,
time,
Roy.
we'd be looking at least 3.5 million people who
Seems
would
like the
lose
same
their
thing.
jobs. So, Chair Powell, if you reach your goal and 2 million people get laid off by the end of this year, and then just like in 11 out of 12 times that unemployment has risen by a point in a single year, it keeps on rising. And then we've got 2.5 million people out of work. We've got 3 million people who get laid off. We've got 3.5 million people who get laid off. What's your plan?
Well, right now the unemployment rate is 3.4%, which is the lowest in 54 years. And we actually don't think that we need to see a sharp or enormous increase in unemployment to get inflation under control.
I'm looking at your projections. Do you call laying off 2 million people this year not a sharp increase in
I would say
unemployment?
4.5%.
Explain that to the 2 million families who are going to be out of work.
That's
life.
life.
We're not targeting any of that. But I would say even 4.5% unemployment is well better than most of the time for the last 75 years.
In other words, you don't have a plan to stop a runaway train if it occurs. Chair Powell, you are gambling with people's lives, and there's a pile of data showing the price
I mean, the
gouging and
government does
supply
that every
chain
day.
kinks and the war in Ukraine are driving up prices. You cling to the idea that there's only one solution: lay off millions of workers. We need a Fed that will fight for families. And if you're not going to lead that charge, we need someone at the Fed who will.
Senator Vance of Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, thanks so much for being here.
That was a tough
I have
one.
a question
That was
that's
a tough
slightly
one for
far
sure.
afield, but
Yeah,
how
this is
you can
brutal,
talk to the Federal
Casey.
Reserve
I
Chairman,
hear
so I
you,
might as
man.
well ask it. So to give some context here, my family comes from Appalachia. Particularly, my grandparents grew up in southeastern Kentucky, coal country, and
All
then
right,
moved to
let's see
southern
if this
Ohio,
spy can
where I
take
now have the
back
honor of representing
401s
all of
through that
Ohio.
takedown
And
attempt.
one of the things that you hear a lot when you study the regional history of Appalachia is it's often described
I like the
as
reversal
possessing a
action there.
resource
I'm going to take a
curse,
shot
right? So
here
there's a
on
lot of
Soxal
coal in
team,
central
couple
Appalachia
cents.
that enables a certain amount
Long-
of consumption. Obviously, consumption is
Long Soxal there, 1479, going to risk off the 1470. So really tight risk here. We'll see if the SPY can recover back there towards 401 and the Qs recover.
productivity growth, lower innovation in an economy that's much less diversified and much less dynamic. I'm wondering when I hear about the history, when I think about and read about the history of Appalachia and the resource curse, I'm struck by some of the by the idea that you could make a similar argument about the reserve currency status of the United States dollar. Americans have enjoyed one of the greatest privileges of the international economy for the last nearly 8 decades, a strong dollar that acts, of course, as the world's reserve currency. You know that better than I do. Now, this has obviously been great for American purchasing power. We enjoy cheaper imports. Americans, when they travel abroad, benefit from lower costs. But it does come at a cost to American producers. I think in some ways you can argue that the reserve currency
Not
status
recovering that
is a
401
massive
as of
subsidy to
yet
American
for the SPY. We'll
consumers,
see what
but a
happens.
massive tax
Doesn't look that great.
on American
I'm
producers.
also looking at the
Now,
Qs.
I know
They're
the
kind
strong
of
dollar
lower
is sort of
here.
a sacred cow of the Washington consensus, but when I survey the
SE
American
continuing
economy
through
and
77.
I see our mass consumption of mostly useless imports on the one hand and our hollowed out industrial base on the other hand, I wonder if the reserve currency status also has some downsides and not just some upsides as well. And let me just put a final point on this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Chairman Powell. We're, of course, now the main supporter of a massive land war in Europe between the Russians and the Ukrainians. I read recently, and I'm not going to comment on how perfect or precise these estimates are, but I read recently that the United States is trying to ramp up production from 14,000 artillery shells to 20,000 artillery shells. That's per month, while the Russians are firing 20,000 artillery shells in Ukraine per day. And when I look at the American economy, we have a lot of financial engineers and a lot of diversity consultants. We don't have a lot of people making things. And I worry that the reserve currency status and the lack of control we have over our currency is perhaps driving that. I'd love to get your feedback on that. What are the upsides and downsides?
What does this
of the
have to
reserve currency?
do?
That's a big question.
Yeah, it's
You have 2 minutes, Chairman Powell, so plenty of time.
Good
I
Lord.
can't even get started on that. So we are the world's reserve currency, of course, and that's because of our democratic institutions.
Easy. You laughing on
It's
that one too?
because of
Oh, good Lord.
our control over inflation over many, many, many years. The world trusts the rule of law in the United States, and those are the things. So once you're the world's reserve currency, it's used in all over the world in transactions, and it's the place where people want to be in times of stress, is in dollar-denominated assets. Now, is it so? Of course, we benefit by being able to pay for our goods all over the world, pay for everything anywhere in the world, mostly with dollars. That's an advantage.
Yeah.
There's some economic theory around that it also has burdens of various kind, but I can't call it all back to mind. But the other thing is, it's a very stable equilibrium, but it's not a perfect one. It's not a permanent one.
SE,
So
baby.
there
Money,
isn't
money,
any
money,
obvious,
money.
candidate to replace the United States right now, where you can have free flow of capital in and out of the country, where you can really trust the rule of law and democratic institutions, and keeping price stability, which you can here.
Do you think it gives us less control over our own currency, the fact that it's become the world's reserve currency?
Why would that give us less
Control over our currency. I'm not sure. So essentially, what we try to control is price stability, and no, it doesn't. It doesn't make it harder for us to keep inflation under control. The United States has a smaller external sector than most large economies, where it's only about 15%. So mainly, what affects
SPY is just
inflation in the
hanging
United
on by a
States is
thread,
domestic
team. Will it
supply
cut through the
and
Do you think
400
it
here?
makes it harder for us to affect
We just been on a
fight
slow
back
leak
against currency
too,
manipulation
and we
to
really haven't
control
turned around.
the
So I think
export
I
and
was a little
import flows in
early
a way
to
that
my stock
stabilizes
sell
our
trade
manufacturing
here.
sector?
You can see because of the downtrend, right? We
Well, I
haven't
mean,
really broken
what's
that
important there
downtrend.
is really the level of the dollar.
And so I'm not
And,
feeling
when
good
the
about
dollar
that
is
stock sell
stronger,
trade,
obviously
but hey,
our
we'll see what
wares
happens.
are more expensive abroad and that kind of thing. But we don't have an opinion on that's the matters of the level of the dollar really matters.
need to
for the
break that
Treasury Department
downtrend.
and the elected government, not for
Get the
Fed.
spike through
Thank you,
the
Chairman Powell.
401, going to like 401.50 would be that break.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, thank you for being here and for your service. I know the Fed is experiencing lots of challenges these days. I've got a couple questions that are just, I think, basic yes or no's, and then some longer questions. Would you agree that changes in the size of
Warren
corporate
trying to start
profits
fires earlier.
can be one of the factors that affects the inflation rate?
Yes.
All right, we're back to break
Now,
even here on
recently,
StockSell.
we saw that the employment cost index, which, as you know,
But
measures the
SPY's
growth
still not
of
coming
wages
back
and
there.
benefit costs, grew at roughly 4% on an annualized basis in the fourth quarter of 2022. Is that right?
That's my recollection. Yes.
So if corporate profits were to decline from the extremely high levels that we saw recently, would it be possible to sustain the 4% growth rate in the employment cost index for an extended period of time, even as we get inflation down to the target of 2%?
Is it possible?
Depends on what you mean by extended period of time. So you would not, without a very, very large increase in productivity, which would be great, but that we don't expect, you wouldn't be able to sustain 4% wage inflation over the longer term. Over the shorter term, though, yes.
So over the shorter term, that would not be a justification in and of itself for raising rates. Is that right, in the short term?
Well, I think wages affect prices and prices affect wages. I think we do think that some softening in labor market conditions will happen as we try to get inflation under control, and will need to happen.
Right, but that's more a prediction about your efforts to fight inflation. Are you saying that simply looking at the current 4% growth rate in the short term
420
is an
showing on
excuse for
SPY?
jacking up interest rates?
I think what I would say is that the overall, all the data we look at,
Let's see if we
in,
get a
in the
head
labor
whip
market,
action
including
now.
not just
What I
that
call by
measure of
head whip
wages,
is
but
where it
others
looks like it's
also,
going one way,
unemployment
and all of a sudden we get a big
participation
bar.
also, job openings,
So they call that the
inputs and things like that.
whiplash
All
effect.
of that, you put that into.
Let's see if we get some of that whiplash
the
effect
picture,
here.
and I think you see a labor
and we just get
market
a
that is
drive
extremely
through.
tight.
That's
and
what
is
I'm
probably
looking for.
contributing
Cut
to
down through
inflation.
400.
I never said it was
That's
the
going to
main
stop me
cause.
out on a lot of
I think
positions.
the larger point here, based on your response to that first question about growth and profits, is corporations have
I
a
hear you,
decision
Trout.
as to whether or not they're going to pocket more for profit, which they can, or provide higher wages to their employees. And if you actually lowered your profit margins, you could sustain a higher wage increase without.
All right, so what do I see on Snap Team? I'm going to show you guys the rule of three here, right? I talk about the rule of three all the time.
Profit
One
margins,
up,
what we're seeing in the
down.
economy.
Hold on,
is,
let me do these
pretty
as,
much about shortages and
rectangles,
supply chain blockages,
so you guys can see them.
When
One up.
there's not enough of a product, what happens is there's
One
a lot
down.
of demand. What you see is prices going up as the supply chains get fixed and shortages
down.
are alleviated. You will see prices,
Three up.
inflation coming down. You'll see margins coming down.
Three down,
and that will certainly
holding.
help with inflation.
Right.
As long as this can hold, I'm going to look for a move for the fourth move to come in here and break out. Will we get that move? Find out, team. Find out.
Which again, that they can do that.
That's my rule
but
of three,
point
baby.
is that it's
Trashing
contributor
those.
to inflation, as you indicated.
Let's see if it comes into play.
In response to the first question,
All
let
you
me
can
ask
do
you about the tight
is stick
labor
to the
market,
trade, right?
Because one of the issues
Know your risk and reward.
in the tight labor market is parents with kids, including a lot of moms
How's
who
SE?
would like to go
Man,
back
that's
into
been a
the
monster.
market, but are not able to do so because of lack of affordable childcare. The other issue is immigration, and I know that you've got
What you
some
gonna do,
recent
Spy?
data on
What you
how
gonna do?
some immigration figures actually have softened a little bit the tightness.
What does
in the labor
immigration
market.
have
Can
to
you just
do
talk
with this?
broadly about those two factors? Affordable childcare and immigration, more
Government,
legal
man.
immigration,
Government
and
just
how they
frustrates
could
me,
affect
team.
labor force participation.
I like the
and therefore
markets.
also reduce inflation.
I don't like politics.
So on the first, we don't make recommendations or evaluate fiscal policy,
Thank
but
you,
I will say
Urban.
there's research
Pass.
that shows that it helps keep women in the workforce when there's childcare available, which is, I think, kind of self-evident. Sorry, the second was
impact of immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Impact of
what I talked about with you is actually as part of the January Bureau of Labor Statistics report, which comes the employment report for January, which comes out in early February. There is a section in there about more people. The Census Department has increased its estimate of the workforce by something like 870,000.
Showing up,
and a
team.
significant part of that has been
We gave a little
immigration.
attempt
and
to
that
try to
has moved
break.
up
No
participation by
break
a
there,
little bit.
team.
But
Looks like we're
it
coming
may
back to
be
the
part
downside
of
here.
why we're
Break through
hearing, it may be
400. I
part
gotta
of
be
why we're
careful.
hearing from in the labor market that the really intense labor shortage pressures that we were hearing about in 2021
I'm not liking the
and
socks out
22
trade, team.
may be alleviating. So that would contribute.
So what I'm going to do
Clearly,
is
more people.
I'm going to take
Clearly, the
majority
economy's
of it off
calling
right
for
here,
more people, with
just to cut the risk
essentially
down.
2 job openings for every
Boom.
unemployed person.
Cut the risk down.
And this can be
a big
this can be
amount
a source
there.
of those.
So now I have
Right,
about
and that would reduce the tightness of the labor market.
I would say
and
about like
reduce
a
pressures on
third
inflation.
of the
right?
position
may already
left.
be doing so.
Thank you.
So I limited the damage if it does come down through that 74. This is a sock sell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Powell, for being here. And I can't resist responding to a few things that my friends on the left have said. For example, in his opening statement, Chairman Brown had a long list of things that raising interest rates won't do. Raising interest rates won't fill in the blank. I'm going to fill in the blank with a couple things. How about raising interest rates won't stop Senate Democrats and President Biden from overtaxing, overspending, overborrowing, overregulating? Chairman Brown said we should rebuild our supply chain by curbing.
Somebody let me know when he's done with his political statements. Oh my God, these guys. Is this what our government's become, team? Is this really what we become?
Corporations
Appreciate you,
reinvest
Shafan.
money if you overregulate their ability to invest that money right here in the United States of America. You want to onshore some things? How about energy policy? How about
Onshore.
instead of
What does this
looking to
have to do
Venezuela
with
or
this?
Iran for oil
This
supply,
is
or
not
Russia,
fiscal
or rather than
policy,
looking to
team.
China for electric vehicles and chips and
Speak
solar panels?
monetary.
How about we have a strategy that onshores those things by reducing regulation, reducing taxes, letting those corporations reinvest their profits rather than
They're killing me, guys. They're killing me.
stock buybacks or dividends. This idea that somehow the Federal Reserve is supposed to keep inflation in check while half of the government works against it is mind-boggling.
One thing to
Now, I know,
notice,
Mr. Chairman, you
Pinterest
don't
is
like to
hanging in
comment
there.
on
This is Pinterest,
policy.
guys.
You
We
and I
traded
have
this
been round and
earlier.
round on
I'm
this.
fully
You were
out of it, so I'll
anxious
talk
to-
about it
to
here. We'll see if
advise
we
us
get
to
that
spend
next
lots of money
push.
during the
Look at the
pandemic.
15
I
minute
don't think a lot of people
from the
know.
morning.
You
This looks
wouldn't
interesting.
respond to-
You can tell we
to,
reject here around the
efforts by the Biden
2710s.
administration after
A
we
push
were
towards
in a robust
2730s would be a nice
for
level
not
there on
spending so much
Pinterest
money.
to keep
Okay, I can
going.
appreciate the change.
Rewind that to the
But now we're in
hourly
this
and
debate
look how that kind of
between
matches up a little
Republicans
bit
and
clearer.
Democrats, between
That's why
particularly
I'm
the House
looking
Speaker
also
and
at Snap.
President
We'll see
on
if we
how to
get
raise
that
the debt
move.
ceiling.
Holding the
And you made
resistance
some pretty
there.
strong
Can we
comments
get the
about
next step
raising
up?
the debt ceiling, absent from structural reforms that would actually help us get back to a reasonable growth. And so I warn you again. If
I
you're gonna
warn
make
you.
Political comments. If you're gonna advise us on policy, be consistent with it. Now, I want to get back to the greening of the Federal Reserve and this.
Did
these-
this guy-
I call them stress tests. You can call them whatever we call them. But I'm concerned that now the Federal Reserve is starting down this path. Maybe it's
This is
slightly
tough.
at first about climate stress testing. I just want to ask you this. If we're going to go down that path, if the Federal Reserve is now going to become part of the Federal Climate Police Force, are we going to consider the ramifications of having entire communities and economies, factories and manufacturers?
Oh my God, this is so tough to
Whatever
watch.
energy entities, large
Dude.
server farms, leaving them susceptible to a very unreliable, very expensive
All right, team.
energy source. Is that part of the stress?
I'm going to start bringing down the political noise, and I'm going to bring you guys over to Benzinga Live. That's going to keep up with all the market action. Of course, you guys can check AB. He's coming up next. I hope you guys catch me a little bit later on Start Swing Trading. Who knows? I might still be in that SOXL trade. If we reverse, we'll still be in it. Snap looking good for me. Pinterest looking good for me. Winner of the day has to be SE off the VWAP there. Really nice trade there. Not going to be mad about that. Picard staying strong. Eric, you'll definitely enjoy Start Swing Trading. That might be your style of show. We'll see you next time, team. Smash the like. Hope you guys enjoyed me actually bringing in the stream a little bit for you guys today, making some commentary throughout. Like always, take all my words with a grain of salt. Like always, I could not be right. This is not for investment advice. This is purely for educational and informational purposes. Hope you guys enjoyed the live trading stream. We'll get you guys over now to Benzinga Live. That's up next. Don't go anywhere, team. Stay right here.
Check